an alternate?
Yes, I'm alternate, I'm sorry. Rich Reed, ex officio.
Bill Spence, member.
Nancy Knight, member.
Terry Wade, member.
Wendy Rathgeber, member.
Bill Larson, member.
Okay, welcome all. We're gonna seat you, Mike.
Thank you.
And we'll start out with the review and acceptance of the meeting minutes for the regular meeting of July 11th. So, Nick had sent them out, requested any corrections.
Yeah, I did note one additional thing as I was reading them this morning, and let me see if I can find it. But it's in section, oh, okay, now this one's got line numbers on it. The one I was looking at didn't. So I think it's line number 45,
Sorry, which meeting are we?
11.
the 11th. Line 45. That should, I think that it was more than sufficient for the lots proposed, not efficient.
Got it.
Other than that, I had no other change.
More than, you're saying?
Well, more than sufficient for the lots
Sufficient.
proposed.
Guys.
I had some back and forth with Nick, but, something I noticed on both minutes that I hadn't mentioned, I probably should have, you wanna put the lot numbers as well as the owner and what the step is, so that you can tie, you know, if you're looking at an application, or to follow it through the minute.
Okay.
You can find it that way. This doesn't really say where the subdivision is right now.
Do you mean in the heading?
So it'd be line 30. Put what lot number we're talking about.
You follow up on that, Nick, with the lot numbers?
I also noticed that I still have 8-lot subdivision.
Yeah, it changed in the meeting.
Right. So I'll-
Technically, when it was continued, it was. So, I'd have my same comment on mine, 113.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Unless somebody needs more time, or
Get a second?
Second.
Does anybody need more time?
I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes as amended for July 11th have been accepted. And I should have taken actually the June 27th one first, so we'll go to June 27th one now. So this is the review and acceptance of the June 27th meeting minutes. This was the workshop. These were put out ahead of time as well, is that correct, Nick?
correct.
Then I'll take a motion.
I move to accept the July 19th meeting.
We're on the,
June
I'm sorry,
27th.
June 27th. Was running ahead as written.
I'll second it.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes for the June 27th meeting have been accepted as written. And now we'll go to the July 29th,
July
19th.
sorry, 2019. Nick, once again, these have been put out ahead of time.
Correct.
For corrections, and you made the corrections. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so I'd have the same comment on this. What, I don't know if looking at this, what the public hearing was on, so. Line 23 really needs to have the lot numbers, the owner, and what are we talking about? I think it was a minor site plan. But it needs to say that. And who was Rob sat for? It doesn't say he was, but there's 5 yes votes.
Well, there were 3 missing.
Right, and we had one leave about halfway through.
You have 5 yes votes, but you have 4 full members and 1 alternate, so it should say who Rob was sat for.
Oh, okay, we have
Any
any past
alternate.
member.
Because it looks like he voted, so it
Yeah,
doesn't, but it doesn't say that he was sacked for some reason.
we said in the beginning, but not for anybody particular, because there were 3 absent. Are we supposed to be naming a particular one?
Yeah, technically, but
Or is it appropriate to say alternates as a full member?
Yeah.
And then
I think that's probably fine.
To say that he was seated.
I
and
mean,
then
what
to vote.
the RC says is whenever a regular member is absent or accused, an alternate will be set in their place, but it doesn't say it's a 3 missing, blah, blah, blah.
Which one?
So I think either way is probably fine as long, but this doesn't really get that he was a full voting member, but I saw that 5 voted, so.
Oh, no, what you're saying is it doesn't say he was seated.
Right.
Right,
Oh, okay.
this is an alternate.
Okay.
Got it.
My suggestion is in parenthetically, seated as full member.
Yeah, I think we have in the past been noting that we've been seeing. I just didn't know.
Yeah, Carrie had to.
All right, can
Where's the best place to note?
add that in. Well, at the first line is roll call and seating of alternates, so I
Right.
would think that would be an appropriate place to put it.
Mhm. And I would include some description of kind of back on the trail proposal. You know, it said that he presented the trail system, but it doesn't say what, it still doesn't say what the project was anywhere.
Yeah, this was a site plan review, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the application was previously accepted, right?
Yes.
Right.
At a meeting 2 weeks.
So
prior
we
to
should
that.
probably say, you know, that the discussion of the trail system was actually a site plan review of the trail system.
And on what lots and what
Well, I don't
activities
know
are-
if it's lots. I don't know, it's multiple lots, right?
I'd still
Yeah.
list the
Yeah.
multiple lots.
Okay.
You might say with reference to
Yeah,
the site as noted
Right.
in the meeting minutes of da that were accepted.
Except that one doesn't say it either. I mean, it has no description of the project. So somewhere you need to look at the minutes and see what they were doing.
Because the bottom line is you ought to be able to search for lot number, blah, 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 if there's a question in the future.
Right.
And if it's identified, then the computer can do all the work for you and find where it's. at.
Right, somebody comes in and says, hey, what's going on here? You know, right,
Ask the computer, and I'll pull it up.
Probably the description should be in the July 11th meeting minutes. And then the continuation of the hearing, with the same title.
well,
We've already
I
accepted
don't
that.
think that hearing was continued, I think you accepted it as complete.
Well, there wasn't adequate notice given to have a public hearing the
Right.
day that it was accepted. So we had the special meeting for the public hearing 2 weeks later to do the best we could to
Right.
expedite it.
But somewhere in the path, you want the lot numbers on each time it's being talked about.
I think,
You want a description of what it is somewhere.
We've already accepted the 11th meeting, so on this one, Nick, can you put those lot numbers and that information in this
Yep.
one? And from now on, when when we. have
Got it.
It would seem to me too that, well, I guess the public hearing on the site plan review for the trail system was opened at 8:06 a.m. Would make it a lot clearer.
Right.
We note that it's closed, but we don't note that it was ever, you know, when it was opened, we don't state what it was all about.
Right, I
You know,
think what's
and we
going
ought
on, a couple of people have asked Nick to make them briefer, and
Yeah.
there's a happy medium.
I guess the general thing would be, you would consider yourself searching the minutes for a particular item, like Wendy said, a motion, a vote, or any particular project that it can be described well on here and in bold, and it makes it nice to.
Got it.
Think in terms of hashtags, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Hashtag trail. Yeah.
All right, so Nick, you'll make the corrections.
I'll make a motion then to approve the minutes of July 19th as amended.
I need a
Should
second.
we actually see it first? I don't know what I'm voting on. I don't know what the language is.
Okay.
Well, you weren't
he's
at the
gonna-
meeting, were you?
This particular one, I believe I was.
Oh, you were? Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, absolutely.
Well, are we changing the language, or are we just clarifying by putting lot numbers on?
And a
And
description.
we're clarifying
I think
that it was for that it was the site plan review of the proposed trail system on lots such and such.
And who the owners.
Right.
All right.
Minor site plan, I think.
Yeah.
Can I get a second?
Also.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes for July 19th meeting as amended has been reviewed and accepted. Okay, the next item scheduled on the agenda is the old business for zoning amendments, but Tara has suggested maybe we put that off and let the new business item come ahead, because she's gonna have to be here later anyway, so we'll go on to new business. Greg Larson, golf course parking.
Right, couple of things, I mean, I'm not gonna run through the history of the valley, but we all know it, but there wasn't a lead developer at the beginning and everything, was all common ownership, and since that time, obviously, things have been divided up and further divided up here further. I believe that the town should step in in the place of a lead developer or a master plan and take control of public areas and also some of the venues and whatnot, because they're not owned together anymore. So in that sense, I would like to see we have 35 acres. We can supply parking on our 35 acres, but it would require us to delete some of the green and open space to do that. And I think the town is in a better position to help us with some parking on street in some form or fashion. And that includes the tennis courts and the golf club. I would like to combine the two to try to formalize access parking for the two different venues. Right now, there is no agreements. There are no defined areas. Where we have the adequate parking that we have is for the square footage of the buildings and whatnot. But at certain times of the week, preferably Saturday mornings, we have issues with overcrowding and just way too many people. And which is a good or bad thing, but the bad thing is we just don't adequately service all the parking for what's coming in. And it's really only for a couple of hours on a Saturday, and it's basically year round at this point, meaning it's July, August. We've had some issues this summer on Saturdays with parking, and we do have issues in December, January, February with parking in the wintertime. We are moving all the employees down to the maintenance garage. That alleviates literally 6 or 7 cars right there that we're moving down there. On a couple of the nighttime events that we've had shuttle people down back and forth on that with the golf carts, and that seems to work somewhat all right. It's the morning times that we're having issues with people. I firmly believe that the town, as this board or as selectmen, should take the place of the master plan developer and be the intermediary and to dictate what's going on as far as parking and not parking, at least in other things too, but that is what I'm here for right now, is parking. I'm proposing that there is enough room on the road out front that we could do kind of an on-street parking, and all I would, if you go down to 49 on the 3 mile sign there on the left-hand side, there's one single picnic table and it's just a turnout there. Something along that line, not talking about parallel parking or city parking. I'm looking more like a rest area type parking lot. And to do the same thing, kind of formalize the tennis court parking and be honest with you, clean that up too, as far as the looks go and how it's utilized down there. At the moment, the tennis courts, I think, are half owned by myself and half owned by the town. I don't think either one of us could shut it down. But it's just, there is no agreement. And it's just, unfortunately, the tennis people don't know what to do or not to do and things like that. And it's been fine as far as I can see, but.
Sorry, just to clarify, by the tennis courts, you mean the off the road parking there?
Yes. I literally believe that I own half of that. If the car pulls in, I own half of it and the town owns the other half. I don't think, I firmly believe that I can't shut it down. And I'm not intending to shut it down, huh?
No, sure. Look bad on the town.
Right. Not saying either way. I'm just saying at this point, I think it should be formalized and more of an agreement, and then who maintains it, who's liable for it, stuff like that. We've had some cars hit by golf balls and in certain spots, they're not, I wouldn't be parking there if I was them. But, there's nobody saying you can or can't do it. There's no signage, there's no defined area. Anyway, I would like to drag that into my thing about getting some parking up on opposite the clubhouse.
So you want the town to convert something right away? Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
some of their layout for parking. The town has a layout, X amount of feet. They're not using all of it. They use it in the wintertime to plow snow and push snow back. I think if we opened it up a little bit or landscape I'm talking about landscaping it to be, I'm not talking about just paving the hell out of the place. It would be easier actually for them to push the snow back.
When you showed me the area, Craig.
Yeah.
You had talked about not head-in parking, but more like parallel.
Yeah,
parking.
you know,
So
like
you're not pushing.
if you come in or come out of the valley, there's two pull-offs for hikers or whatever.
About 3 miles down.
They run it right at I came in here last night and at where it says Water Valley 3 miles, that little spot right there, it looks like a little rest area, which I think it is. It's a little pull-off and something similar to that, but landscaped, I guess, with trees and other, I would maintain it, I guess, as far as landscaping goes in the summertime.
Now, this is across the street.
Yeah, yes.
You guys have Valley Road.
Yeah, I would suggest that's where it would be because it's pretty flat in there and there's no drain. The other side, the road drops off and there is, we are the subject of a lot of drainage from the road runoff, which is fine with me. We're handling that drainage.
So you're talking about the opposite side of the street?
Yeah,
is the
it's
clubhouse.
flatter. It's flatter
Like the opposite side of the clubhouse,
where the sidewalk is,
My side.
on the sidewalk side.
but not where the sidewalk is set back and there's that horrible drainage issue.
The drainage issue is on the other side. Pipe.
Right towards the intersection of Village Road is what she's talking about. Not that far towards Village Road.
Yeah, you couldn't do parking up against an intersection, I don't think. You'd have to be a sight line or something away from it. I don't think on that side of the street, I'm proposing, because it's already flat. I think we could temporarily do it this winter to see how it worked with just cones or sawhorses or whatever.
So
And
you're asking the town to use the right of way, not combine the right of way with some of your land?
no,
No.
Okay, it's just strictly right of way.
I would do that on the tennis courts. I would give up my land.
Well, it would be a select board thing. I mean, you could present the idea here or something.
But we would be actually sitting down with Craig and helping figure out exactly what it is and then making a recommendation to the select.
Yeah, you get Chris in here and this is sort of public safety.
Right. You'd have to bring some traffic people in.
Yeah.
On a full. I think you could ask for a temporary one for, especially during the winter, because it's just, everything's frozen. And see what it would, then you could show people kind of how you envisioned it. And then from there, I'd move into it more, if everybody agreed it, or if it was chaotic and disaster, then we'll just take the cones away.
Actually,
Plan B.
the tennis court area would just be a continuation of what has been in the past.
It could
They
be,
haven't
or it
allowed
could be
the
more
last
for
couple
a
years.
different setup over there too. I'm just throwing that in the mix because I believe that should, if I was them, I'd be asking for a formal agreement.
We used to plow that in the wintertime, Mark, but last winter they didn't.
Well, they do push it back a lot, but they don't
The
plow
town
it.
does- If it was plowed, it was not plowed by the town.
Oh, okay. Many years in the past, because that was a good place to park to get onto the golf course for skiing
Mhm.
in the wintertime. And the tennis players, obviously.
Well, we just wing it back.
Yeah.
To clear Snows
It was
Mountain.
used as a dump, a snow dump, wasn't it?
No, it's been it just looks like that because of the drifting and the fact that we wing it back off of Snows Mountain Road.
That's right, Pyramid's using the golf course as a dump. They're dumping a ton of snow on
Yeah.
it, which they've asked permission, so
Yeah, they push it back onto your,
50 feet in.
yeah.
Would you have any comment with regard to maintenance or liability or anything like that, Mark?
Well, it's not all right of way. Especially if we go to the sidewalk,
Mhm.
that's on Serena Group land.
The physical
That
sidewalk is
is-
today?
The sidewalk's outside of the right of way.
So
And
you wanna
the
clean that up.
sidewalk that goes down in front of
Our
Green
area.
Peak, it is a right of way on Sununi Group land.
Would be sidewalk.
Tyrell Lane.
The
Huh?
sidewalk is?
Yeah.
In front of me?
Mhm. It's outside of the right of way.
Why would that,
Now, also our road, as I understand, our road, Devereaux Way
Yeah.
is half Sununu and half us, I think, for some strange reason,
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct.
which is really,
Yeah.
again, really strange.
Well,
We plow and
that's
maintain
where
it.
what they
the
asked
property
for.
line, that's where the property line was drawn.
We understand. There are a bunch of things like that that need,
So we have to get
Cleaning up.
everybody, and
No, I would
Jim, it's not, it goes beyond Chris, it's not just a public safety issue, it's, Jim's gotta be able to maintain whatever we do, so. We gotta have somebody draw what we're talking about, and then let people look at it and say, yeah, we can do that, or no, we can't.
And see how it works with what we're thinking for multi-use pathway down the road and how the lighting would work and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to consider.
Mm-hmm.
are moving parts.
Is it something you could tackle as part of the master plan? That's really the planning board's opportunity to
Right.
make recommendations to the select.
well, I
I
agree.
think it should be tackled as part of the master plan in terms of recommendation, whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense. And included in the master plan. Yeah, I agree
Well,
with you.
there are a bunch of, there are a lot of,
Parking
parts.
is in the central section of town has been and remains a mess.
yes,
And I think there are opportunities to define where the parking's gonna be. And I think it'll free up a lot of land. But I think, for other uses. But you know, but it's gotta be looked
I think
at.
there are two points here. One is, if I understand Craig correctly, we need perhaps to, although we have to have it reflected in the master plan, I think you're looking for something that is more immediate in terms of something we could do, even temporary, to try something.
Right, I agree. I don't mind the master plan. We all know about master plans. They take 3 years to write, 4 years to approve, and then they sit on the shelf for 15 years and they expire by the time they get approved. So,
Yeah,
It's really
The second-
it's really the planning board's only,
I understand,
Master
but
plan.
you can also
Right.
have a master plan for different parts of towns. I've worked obviously in many towns where they had a master plan for
Right.
sections. And even though this is a 450 acre town, I still think you could still have minor master plans for certain areas.
as for the tennis court parking,
Yes.
the second issue you raised, there is a large, mainly unused parking lot on private property on the other side of the tennis courts.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That's,
No,
he's talking,
No,
no, he's talking about, he's talking on Snow Mountain Road, people parking alongside Snows Mountain Road. headed in.
Because
Across
people
from-
park the shortest distance to the
Correct.
venue.
Yes,
Exactly
If
right.
that's by
across
definition.
from the tennis courts, right?
Right.
on Snows Mountain.
On Snow
What I'm
Mountain.
saying is there's a large, mainly unused parking area further down the road.
And they have permission to use that to park tennis people in the summer.
Yeah.
You know where I'm talking about?
Academy.
Next to
On
the
the other side of the
Next to
chair,
the Academy.
on the other side of the
But
chair.
who owns that thing?
So
It's owned by the academy.
No, the academy,
The Academy.
the academy.
So
And the
one,
academy has given them permission to use it for parking in the summer.
I don't think anybody knows.
so,
Correct.
Well, nobody will park there. That's the
Right,
problem.
Right.
They'll
That's-
park next to the
okay.
academy building,
that comes to my next
but,
practical point.
uh,
Why
that
can't
was
we
a
as a
fight for a
town
long
do
time.
something about the parking down from Snows Mountain Road?
You
if that's
definitely
an
can.
issue?
I think
Well,
you
that-
should. I think this is the
That's
venue
it.
to
It
do
doesn't
it.
require much of anything.
No, I mean, instead of me talking, Tom and I getting together late at night,
Right.
figuring it out, I do believe it is a town issue at this point. I think the town should take the steps of what Cochrane was before.
Right.
I think you need to, the town needs to be the master developer, period. And forget about, because now we got too many different owners going two different directions and all kinds of things. And yes, we can work it out amongst ourselves, but I don't think it would be the benefit or the desire of the town.
Where they're parking now off of Snows Mountain Road,
Yeah.
is that completely your property?
No, I think it's
No.
half and half.
Half and half. That's what he was talking about. was
Yeah.
The other
That
owner,
spot you're talking about.
Right.
Right away.
Across.
the right of way.
I don't think
Half
that
of
I
it's
have
right.
the ability to shut it down, nor do I think the town has the ability to shut it down 100%. It's somewhere in
Nor
the,
would that be in the best interest.
Well,
of the
no,
town.
well, I would think a simple case of, you're the landowner, we have the right of way as a town, putting up signs saying, please park. There's already a sign there that says,
Yeah.
where to park, where the.
the only issue I have
On
with
Snows
people
Mountain.
parking there is we've had cars get hit by golf balls and
Yeah, it's not-
they come with me with a bill for a
course.
windshield. And I'm looking at them like, I'm
So,
sorry, guys,
okay, so basically you're asking us as a town if we would
step in.
step in and as the landowner, the right of way.
Yeah.
There.
I'm willing to give up an
Prohibit-
easement on that side,
To-
whatever it is, 4 feet, 5 feet, or
Okay,
whatever.
I understand.
I'd be willing to give up an easement for a definitive tennis court parking or municipal parking lot, actually what it is, would be. You could be people parking there and they can do what, they can play the croquet. They could do cross country in the winter, blah, blah, blah.
As opposed to just eliminating parking
Or
and
just
pushing
doing
people
nothing.
to that.
doing nothing.
Parking, or doing nothing.
And but the same token, I'm asking for some consideration up by the club.
Right, that's the main issue. Right.
Right, just to clarify in my mind, you talked about the right of way about Snows Mountain Road. When you're talking about right of way, the town actually owns that land within the right of way. And
They have a layout, they have a road layout for road passage, but they don't have the right to park cars on it, nor do they maintain it. And I think somewhere in the middle, the property line is somewhere in the middle. So that I own a little bit of it and they own, and the town layout owns the rest. So, but there is no agreement whatsoever for these cars to be parking over there at this point. Like Mike says, I firmly believe that I would love to have them continue to park there.
It's actually illegal parking the way it is now.
Right. And I'm asking you to formalize it and define who maintains it, which I'm willing to do a little bit of maintaining it, actually. And I think the town should plow it, let's say, but I would maintain it in the summertime. And the same, if we could do on the Valley Road opposite side by the sidewalk, is put in a kind of a rest area type parking spot. I think between 10 and 15 cars max. I'm not talking about a huge deal. I would like to try to see if we could temporarily do it in December, January, and February to see how it actually, one would work with Jim Mayhew and plowing, and how would it affect the sidewalk access, and how it actually, people would actually use it. That's the other thing.
Now, why wouldn't you wanna look at parking on the clubhouse side of the street?
I can pave the hell out of the whole place, just
No,
like
no,
a
I mean,
Walmart.
as far as using that type of a same setup.
It drops
right
off
away,
hugely. It would be a very expensive deal.
There isn't any point along that.
No, it drops off at
Like
least
even-
4 feet on a whole area until you get down to the corner opposite his house.
Right.
That's the only place it levels off.
Right,
And at that point, I envision using it temporarily, somewhat in the summertime too, on Saturdays.
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is, wouldn't it be easier to work with the town on the right of way in your property as opposed to the town of their right of way and somebody else's property?
I don't literally have to work with the town at all. I mean, it's my responsibility to maintain parking for my guests.
Right.
I'm saying to you is I'm gonna give up green space in lieu of parking. If that's what people want, I will have to do that. I'm saying, I think there's a better alternative than me giving up green space for parking.
Have someone else give up their green space.
I don't
I'm
consider,
not entirely following your train of thought on which side.
we have a vista view on our side with green space, period. I can change the whole look of the whole property like that. I don't even need permission, I don't think. I mean, I would just come in with a site plan, so that's what we're doing. You know, all those trees are going down, we're putting signage and fencing up. And I think that would be wrong.
The pedestrian village study suggests off-street.
Right.
On street parking.
Right. And I'm not asking for a lot.
And the master plan has adopted the pedestrian village study as part of it. Now, what Craig is talking about is parking, he's talking about on-street parking, but basically outside the right of way. Now, does that pedestrian village study, when it suggests on-street parking, are they suggesting it would be within, I think they're suggesting it's within the right of way?
No, there were areas where it was outside. We would have had to either change the right of way or get easements or whatever. If you look at the width that they were talking for a road like Village Road, we were well outside of the established right of way. Look,
Onto
just
what
look-
we call Sununu Lane.
well, Terrell, yeah, Terrell is the name of the company.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but yes.
So if we're gonna get to that point, what Craig is suggesting here is probably gonna be part of the process. Is that
Oh,
correct?
absolutely. I think what he's talking about is implementing what the pedestrian study said for a section of Valley Road. And I don't think that it really goes beyond the existing sidewalk. Now, whether that's on Tyrell land or whether it's, half and half, whatever. If you take the outside edge of the existing sidewalk towards the road, we're talking about that little piece of grass
Yeah.
and the sidewalk.
Oh.
And turning that into this turnout
Oh, so
that
just-
he's talking about.
Oh, okay, I'm picturing
Yeah.
something.
No, it's not, it doesn't
Okay.
go, but it still is outside of
Gotcha.
the right. of way.
So what Craig is suggesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, is this is something you'd like to try on a temporary basis. In other words, give it a shot for 1 year.
Right.
How does the town handle something like that?
You're asking me.
And
Well, we still have to sit, we'll have to go through the process, we'll have to sit down with the property owners We'll have to establish where the right of way ends.
That being
And
the
then-
case, then what is it that you would need? You would need some sort of a drawing or something?
We need
from-
some sort of drawing, some sort of picture that we could sit down with the owners and that we could say, okay, this piece of this is yours. This is the town right of way. Here's what we want to do in the winter. Here's what we want to do in the summer. Who's going to have liability for parking, and that sort of thing.
How big a project is what you just described?
Well, I don't think it's much. I think somebody's got to have it drawn out. And then we need to sit down and I don't know what level of detail they're gonna want to go in as far as a written agreement
Yeah, meaning to run.
with Terrell.
Can I ask another question?
Mhm.
What we're talking about is potentially sometimes eliminating the sidewalk that is there.
Yeah,
Well, I think you incorporate the sidewalk. I don't think you want to eliminate it. It's highly used. It's used in the
I mean,
winter.
that's what
Well,
my
it's
issue
not-
is.
but,
It is used.
but Craig, it's not used in the wintertime.
Well,
That's
they
the
try to
problem.
use it.
They, well, it's not
But
maintained.
nobody walks on it.
We don't, people are walking in.
Yeah,
the
but
street.
I sit there and look at it and,
Exactly, the issue that Mark just said is from
Village Road.
village, well, no, from the end of, actually, from the end of Village Road where that black bear, call it whatever it is, sidewalk, whatever you want to call that thing, all right, which nobody uses in the summer or the winter,
Right.
really.
That's right.
People are biking, walking, whatever, because we see them in front of us.
Mhm.
And they really don't
On the
use
road.
the sidewalk
don't
much
use
of
the
all, even though they should, because they can't, and they've started there and they just keep going.
Right.
Which is another issue that we have to address, but not right now. But, so what we do is Craig has a legitimate issue, a legitimate issue that we should talk about to resolve. Terrell can get involved, the town can get involved. What do we have to do to expedite that?
I think on a temporary basis is the way to go. I think it's just to see if it even, I wouldn't want to do a lot of work on this whole thing if nobody used it.
Well, then why not just go to the select board and ask for a temporary lift on the on-street parking ban?
I
In that
probably
area.
will, but at the same time, I we gotta come here first.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm
Um,
just, I guess asking Mark, wouldn't that be the most straightforward way to test it if the select board would?
They ultimately have to decide, yes.
It ultimately will have to do that, but I
Yeah,
think that if you guys say, yes, we agree with trying this out and we think it's a good idea, or, because they're gonna, the other two are gonna look at Rich and go, well, what does the planning board think?
Right.
And so it's better to have this conversation and get something from you as a planning board
Agreed.
on what you think about this.
So
Even
do we
if
need
it's
a vote,
temporary.
Or can we do, say informally,
Well, it's a discussion, so this is not a formal hearing.
Yeah.
I'll just let you know, we did, when I had the addition done, I did bring in a surveyor to actually survey and make sure that where the building is, we have an as-built of where that building is today on the lot, and I had them, I don't know if you know anything about engineering, but I did have them shoot the edge of the pavements and the sidewalks on the opposite side of the street in anticipation. I don't necessarily want to pay to have it, but I could have at least a delineation of, it would be off of our property where that asphalt starts and where the sidewalk starts. We did shoot that. We do have those ability to draw that semi-drawing plan.
I think it would be a good idea to make sure we understand what it is
Right.
you're suggesting,
Right.
and so that everybody.
But eventually
is
the
using
town
same-
has to have, those roads should be defined. They are bounded. The road, Valley Road is bounded. I have bounds on my side of the property which delineate where that road
Yes,
starts
we
and
know,
ends.
we know where.
Right. So even with whatever I draw up, it's not gonna be accepted if you formalize this down the road. So I don't want to get too deep into it. as
I
far
would
as cars
echo
go.
that, Terry, I'm confused. We're talking about multiple areas. And I would like to get, if you want our concurrence, then we're gonna have to get a piece of paper that basically says this and this. It doesn't have to be to scale, doesn't have to, but I'm confused as to what we're talking about
Right,
now.
just a basic sketch and.
I
how
thought we
deep-
were talking about the Snows Brook Road, or the parking for the tennis.
That's one of them.
That's one of those.
That's
So
Two
there's
separate,
multiple.
two separate issues.
Two separate issues.
But so we have one issue, which is the immediate parking for the golf club
and
area.
tubing.
Right, golf club and tubing,
Right.
both of which have issues.
Right.
Which should be.
On Saturday.
The
Right.
second one
Is
is
the tennis.
the
Where
tennis
they're
thing,
parking off the Snows Mountain.
where we're parking off Snows Mountain Road, and people are gonna park there.
I just
And
need
that has to be
just a
resolved.
diagram and saying A and B, you know? Here they are.
And some
And
sort of a
freehand.
written statement as to what you're proposing. And then, you know, then at least we've got something we can all look at and say, we understand what it is. When Mark talks with Chris, you know, Mark talks with Jim, he'll be able to identify.
I don't have a problem doing what you're saying.
I don't know,
I
I want
just-
to add something, last well, it's our discussion,
Yeah.
but the existing, what, the GIS mapping is a really good tool.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
We can,
that's
we
fine.
don't need to use your engineering, Craig. I think we
Yeah.
can use the town tax map, so it's what I was
Right.
just gonna say. We can draw very
When you say
easily.
we, who is? Are
Well,
you?
somebody's, we're gonna have to sit down before we bring you something. And I don't wanna bring you something that Chris and Jim are just gonna say, no, that won't work. I don't wanna do all of that and get
Can
into
you
the
get
discussion.
together with Craig then
Yes,
and get something together? I mean, I
Yes.
don't know. So it'll be between you and Craig, who comes up with this
Yes.
sketch that we can look at and say, I understand. It's gonna have some sort of a verbal explanation of what's being proposed,
yes.
that we can all use to go around to all the different entities.
I just want to say, just a minor move. I mean, obviously, I'm here for that reason, but I'm not proposing. I think the planning board of the town should propose this. I think that should be the gist of the disagreement.
You're suggesting that the planning board propose
Take
it.
the lead of what normally was a developer. And so, yes, I am throwing it out there, and I'd be the beneficiary of this little parking lot area. I will 100% tell you that. I'll be the beneficiary of it. But I believe it's not my proposal, because if it was, I would just go to the property owner directly and say, give me an acre. And I'll just plow it all down. That's not what I'm proposing, or that's what I'm suggesting. As to be not facetious, but I can't control the parking because I have 35 acres to control parking with. I'm saying I don't think it's I think it would be a better idea if the town stepped in and did some parking, admissible parking, let's say. It works in every town that I've ever been to. The town has a certain section of main streets, main streets in towns, or they do supply some municipal parking. And businesses are allowed to use that at certain times of the day or whatever. And it's the benefit of all of us, to keep cars off the roads or not park illegally and stuff like that,
But you would be willing, as an individual that's involved.
As a taxpayer of this town, I'd be
help
willing
the
to
town
step
put
in here,
together
yes,
Some sort of,
yes,
um,
yes,
proposal that reflects your suggestion. If
right.
The town, just to see if the planning board will accept the idea of proposal.
Or endorse the idea.
That's one side. And I absolutely agree with all of that. It'd be really good if we could get it done before, can we call it tubing season?
Well, I'd like to be on the agenda for the next meeting, actually. We can get it done before then.
But let's also talk about the second as a tennis player. We also have to resolve.
I think they should be done together. And maybe, I think there should be other spots that I would highly suggest
Right.
that we do on-street parking,
There's
and
it's
especially.
parking in the center of this town is a mess.
Yeah.
And, and I think one of the solutions is to make most of it municipal parking. If we can get the current landowners to agree to cede the land to the town. And then we're gonna get over the argument of who's responsible for maintaining property they don't maintain today.
100%. I
Right.
agree.
I'm agreeing. I think the town should step in as the developer, lack of a better word. And actually take the lead.
Mark's not happy.
Well, no, it isn't that I'm not happy, but you have to understand that
Of course, money.
it's gonna cost money. Thank you, Bill. That is exactly, I mean,
Right.
if everybody if everybody is for this, I agree with Bill. We probably, with half of the actual area, could get the same parking by redoing all of those parking lots.
Right.
Okay, but you gotta hire a parking engineer to look at it and make recommendations, and then you've gotta fund fixing it, and then you've gotta fund maintaining it.
Well, as a property owner and a taxpayer that owns part of that rink, I think the problem with the rink is that they don't own any property. And that as a major asset of this town, I think it devalues that property hugely, that they can't park or do anything outside 5 feet outside that building. You can't even drop the
One
snow off.
foot, 1 foot.
Right, and I think that is a travesty that was carried on from the previous developer, and I think that,
I agree.
And I'm.
and you have an asset, the biggest asset, one of the bigger assets in this town is that rink, and it's worth zero. As if you would try to sell that thing tomorrow, anybody in his right mind would say, first you wouldn't get financing for it because the bank would shut you right down, and any developer would say, no, you pay me $500,000 and I'll take it off your hands.
Well, that's the agreement we have now.
And so so I think
basically
if you were
Saying
smart, if
you
we
pay
were smart as a
taxes, we'll take it
taxpayer,
off your hands.
if we were a taxpayer, the smart thing would be to clean up that mess.
Absolutely.
And that goes to parking.
Right.
And so I'd be all in favor of fixing the parking. And if it becomes municipal parking, if we can work that out, fine, but we just have to be committed to it if we're gonna do it.
We're already committed.
Well, no, we're not. That's the point.
You're-
We're not committed.
Yes, you are, because you're sending the police out to take people off the town properties. I mean, you're policing the properties. And
That's a
you're,
lot different than what I'm talking about.
Well,
I think we need to keep this in a manageable
yeah,
arena at the
Yeah.
moment. I mean, there are a lot of stakeholders for a complete parking redo that require another
Yeah.
committee, dare I say, and a lot of discussion, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But the immediate issue, I think, proposals here has to do with trying to deal with the parking as it relates to the golf/tubing
Right.
issue, and secondarily, the tennis.
And
And
we-
what can we do in a more immediate time frame to at least explore a possibility temporarily, see if something would work?
and I believe that if it did work, I'd be the first guy to pull it out.
Right.
You know, but I think it could work, and I think it would be kind of nice, and it could actually make the road, it would slow the road down a little bit if you put some calming devices in there, which is a parking lot, basically, or rest area. You could actually landscape that road. It looks like that you could go 60 miles an hour on that road.
Sure
That's the
does.
way it was built.
People do.
Yeah, and if you put some calming devices in there, they will slow down to the 25 mile an hour, which my understanding is that every resident agrees that 25 is the limit. But, you know, I think you have to help on the side if I was running the town, I would say, we're spending a lot of money on policing these roads. And I would take some of that money, instead of policing these roads, to maintaining the area.
So we have a way forward though,
Yeah.
so Craig, you
Yes.
agreed to meet with Mark?
Yeah,
Chris and Jim.
If we
and-
can do the
and then-
GSI thing, would be
and put
kind
it
of
on
cool.
next
Yeah.
month's agenda.
It just
and then
a
we can
sketch so that
have
I
a
know,
conversation.
I'd like to specifically know what area we're talking about.
And some idea of how, it would
Yeah.
work. And being temporary does nothing, I think, to impact or lock us into any master plan issue.
Okay, that takes care of one side. What do we do about the tennis court?
Well,
That's
no,
the
it's
same-
just, it's just an A and B.
Same
So
thing.
we're saying, so we're gonna do,
Right.
so we're not doing one, we're doing two.
Well, then just mark them so
Right.
that I can see what we're talking
No,
about.
but we
Okay,
are,
what the plan is.
we're
Yeah.
covering, we're trying to do both of those And someday, Bill's absolutely right, as he always is, the whole parking issue has to be tackled.
Right.
Okay, but for today. and-
Yes, we'll
Today is
take
not
care of
that
those two. We'll
Okay.
take care of the two.
And Greg's
Because Nancy
suggestion,
and I want to be in a place to park.
Nick, you've got a clear in your mind what it is we're
Yeah,
able
if I
to,
could charge, I would.
what it is we're able to accomplish for the next meeting. And can you, Craig, you want to be put on the agenda
Please.
for the next one?
Can, we do so that you can get a vote, or is it just a discussion? It's fine to bring the selectmen?
Well, I don't know, I guess it depends on, after the discussion, what it is that we're thinking we might do.
Right, but I don't wanna, we'll run out of time eventually. That's what I'm getting at.
We get-
Well,
No, I think
my question,
should the planning board make a
Yeah. do you wanna
vote
move forward
on it or
with this?
not? If you do vote, then it has to be a formal, I would assume, a formal hearing.
That's why I brought up the master plan, that the planning board doesn't really have any authority over this other than a master plan recommendation.
All right, so that, but
We-
they would have
we-
to vote on that, right?
What we've done in the past,
Right.
I believe, is had a letter from the chairman's office, right? That goes to the selectmen, says, we've discussed this, and this is the result of our discussion.
And we,
Would that
and
work
we
for you?
recommend.
Yes, I just want,
Yeah.
I don't want to go to the selectmen and not have anything in my
I
hand.
think,
Right.
I think we end up with a general consensus. is what we
Right.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Recommendation.
Yeah.
But it should
before
also-
Well, I'd just like to see the.
No, I agree with you, Bill.
Yeah,
So what we're gonna do at the next meeting, hopefully, I just wanna summarize simplistically. What hopefully we're gonna do at the next meeting is we're gonna have conceptual drawings.
what about
And
the general public though?
I don't
no,
think we need
you don't need.
conceptual drawings for additional parking for the golf/tubing area and conceptual drawings for the tennis/croquet area as to what we want to recommend to the select board.
And could we, if it's not a public hearing, but just a discussion, could we do an informal mailing to some of the residents in that area? That would be, I don't want to be anybody blindsided on this. And, you know, I don't want to show up at the selectmen's meeting and you got 10 people behind me. Well, where the hell did this come from? You know, kind of deal. And I think it would be best for all, you don't want to hear that either. You don't have to be certified mail. I think you can send a small letter to them that there is a discussion, it's not a formal meeting, blah, blah, blah. You're welcome to come. I don't know, if there's a small cost in that, I would pick up that cost.
Since it's not something that the planning board has any role in, officially, it would seem like a public hearing would take place through the select board.
Right, the select board should
Yes.
hold a public hearing. Well,
Once we,
I don't know, they do what you want, but they certainly would have to post it in the minutes that a discussion is gonna be held on this subject. And if people read the minutes, they'd know enough to go down.
Well, we've been in the business long enough to know that you always have the neighbors that say, where the hell was this?
Yeah,
And I didn't know how to get notified, blah, blah, blah.
This is to be considered. If you don't do the formal notification, then there's gonna be that one person who didn't get notified.
Right.
And they're gonna be very upset.
Right.
I don't think that you should go through a semi-notification process. I don't think that's a good
Well,
idea.
since you can't vote on something anyway, because you don't, what she's saying is you don't have the power to vote on it
Right.
except for the selectmen. But you do have the power to discuss it because it does fall under the master plan. I'm saying is if it costs $30 to send out a mailing to 30 people, I'm willing to pay the $30.
Can't be that many people.
No, but the 31 would be very upset.
Well, then,
Unless, as Craig's saying, you're notifying them, you gotta talk about this as a master plan recommendation and send it to the abutter
right.
and make sure to cover all the abutters.
Yes.
It's more of a polite thing and it's more of a, I don't, you're all volunteers, we're all here, we're all part of the community. You don't want that 31 person saying, well, you didn't tell, I didn't know nothing about this.
So I think you'd wanna do a public notice. That
Yeah.
it's,
Right.
that it's a master plan discussion
Right.
and
Yeah.
send,
Follow the same
send that
procedure
notice
you
to
would.
the abutter.
And we'll send it to the abutters.
Right.
And,
If there's notification, that's what you do.
And 50 cents stamp.
Okay, think that gets us to the next meeting.
Perfect.
And I,
And just on a side note, if you're talking about mass plan, I would divide it up and just kind of piecemeal
Yeah,
it. None of us will live long enough to do a mass plan.
We've done it in the past, we can do it again. That's crazy, right?
We have a number of committees looking at all the chapters now.
we might surprise you.
We all know.
well, there'll be a public hearing on it, so each will be able to add
Yeah,
that
but
information.
just like everything in general, I mean, we'll only worry about our little circle of.
And we have a public meeting plan too, for September.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, now we'll move on to zoning amendment review.
So I think you're down to just, of the three topics, just talking about setbacks for this year, because, you were gonna wait and talk about density on that, as part of the master plan discussion and go from there. And parking, the amendments that you adopted in March enabled what he's talking about. So they opened the door for counting some on-street or public parking as meeting parking requirements. So I think the consensus was to kind of see how those new sections work in the parking. And you had a couple of things to look at on setback with, I think, two areas of focus, and one was clarifying the accessory building setback that we all struggled with when we were reviewing the ordinance, when it talks about the height ratio. And also a little bit related still on the density, whether you want to go smaller with any of the setbacks in the BC or C1 districts toward a more village center or walkable, like. And I wanted to add a third thing to think about. And that's why I sent you these definitions of accessory building and structure. I should add building on there too. Right now, your setbacks are for buildings, but in thinking about, say, for example, a gondola structure, you might wish that the setback was for structures rather than buildings. That would be more typical. And then you would exclude all kinds of things from structures, like Mountain Lakes did in their example. They are no structure except signs, fences, walls, mailboxes, lampposts. And as much as I hate vague wording, the adding and the like was my idea, because we were kind of stumped with how to say, there's gonna be something we forgot, like the thing you put the trash barrel in. Right.
Can we go back to something you said a minute ago?
We go back to all of them. I was just trying to.
No. 'Cause I know
The two
somewhere
things,
in the maybe foreseeable future, they talk about a gondola. People have been talking about a gondola since forever. Is that not included here? Is that something that has to be fixed?
Well, is it a building? It's not really a building.
I don't know what it is. Not a
It's
school.
Well,
it's a
the
structure.
Transportation now.
Well, it's a structure. That's my point. Right now, your setbacks are only for buildings, but there may be other structures that you wish were included in the setback.
There may be towers, there may be
Right.
Well, there would be.
ancillary
The towers
structures.
would be, the question becomes the cabling overhead. I don't know.
And you
I don't
already,
know. I don't know.
you
either.
already
I'm just
exempt
asking the
that.
question.
Yeah,
You
I
exempt-
would
you
think you'd
exempt
want
that
to.
from your definition
a
of structure
different-
Poles,
already.
lines, cables.
You already say structure does not include poles, lines, cables.
Right.
So we could expand on that, but my thought again was,
Yeah, but theoretically,
that your setbacks more typically would be for structures, not just buildings.
theoretically, there's gonna be a real live structure at the beginning and end.
Right,
not
Well, that's
is it
probably gonna be a building of some
a
sort.
building of some,
So it's already covered. The
Right.
building has already got setbacks related to it. What I think we're talking about right now is if there is a tower that is required to be somewhere
Yeah.
inside the 500-acre portion of town, or two, or however many, do you want to include those from setbacks? And right now, the wording, right, Tara, does not include those.
Correct.
It only says buildings.
Right.
It would be more typical to have the setback applying to structures
Right.
rather than
And-
just structures that are building.
And separate from the gondola, things like,
Maybe
we
other
get,
things.
we get questions in the office regularly about cell towers, about other
okay?
types of
So
infrastructure.
those are more.
Yeah, you know, so I think making it a word like structure rather than just building. Sure. Would be,
All right, that was the easy part. Now we'll go back to
Yeah,
what
right.
they actually will be.
yeah, now define it.
I'll work on the definition. I'll come back to the meeting with a definition. But, do you want to start with the, using the table? The first row, I think, that you're looking at is the fourth row, setbacks between any building and the right of way of any street. And, it was 35 in the C1, you changed it to 20. But there was discussion about that being for now, and then we'll talk about it more later. Because still 35 in the BC and 20 is even probably a little bit big if you're talking about the kind of dense walkable village center that your study was looking at.
Now, is it big if we were to allow on-street parking? Like, how would our discussion that we just had interact with these setbacks? Like, how does that all fit together? Like, if we're saying, okay, in C1, you can have on-street parking everywhere, would that be into the setbacks? And so then it would turn into more of a 15 to 10 foot setback. How does that? Do you know what
Well,
I'm
it's
saying?
talking about the right of way, so if you were gonna,
Right.
it would start after the parking.
It's basically, I don't think it's an issue because basically all on-street parking would be on the
In
town's
the right of
property.
way, right.
In the
So-
right of way.
It'd be in the right of way.
But were you
So-
saying that what on-street parking would not be in the right of way, it would have to seed into the property owner's property?
Well, think if the town was gonna make parking that didn't fit in the existing right of way, the
You'd
town
change
would
the right of way.
change the right of way.
Yeah,
The town
we'd
would
want to change. the
widen
right-
the layout of the
This is
road.
gonna be municipal parking. That's part of what I was saying about people, it's a big project because you gotta
Yeah.
talk
Right.
about things like that.
They'd be laying it out bigger.
And quite frankly, I think the last conversations, there was a lot of confusion about the setbacks. And people were envisioning the setbacks being from the edge of pavement,
Right.
and it wasn't the edge of pavement. It's the right of way, which usually is at least 4 feet or more from the edge of pavement.
Well,
So,
you have two different kinds, right? You have 35 from the right of way of any street,
right,
20 now in the C1, but then you still have 20 feet between the building and the paved edge of internal road.
Right.
internal roads, those access ways, because those are generally more narrow.
Right.
But I think a lot of times we ask Chris, do you have sufficient room for these buildings to be safe?
Mhm.
And I think if we want to maximize density, and I'm only talking about C1 and VC, then you allow that to be the controlling factor. And you minimize those setbacks and then make sure that you have a safe environment from the public safety standpoint. That way, a developer can put buildings closer where it works and set them back where it works. And I think that's something in this conversation that you should consider, because there are a lot of main streets that look nice that have a building and a sidewalk and parking, you know, and I don't think there's necessarily in the C1 zone, there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I mean, you guys will control the way, pretty much the way it looks by talking to Chris and saying, is this safe? And isn't that the overriding concern? And shouldn't we want as much property value and, you know, business or whatever it is we're trying to do in the town center? Why have a setback at all? As long as you've got the proper wording to make it a safe environment.
Appearance.
Well, okay, appearance.
I mean, when
Yeah.
you said
Yeah.
the things you said,
Mhm.
the third criteria, I think that you have to include.
Mhm.
Not that I disagree with the
Yep.
first two you had,
Yep.
but I think appearance is also important. We want our town to have a certain appearance.
Mhm.
And I think that appearance is very, very important.
And it's a matter of defining that without allowing too much subject.
Well, I leave that to you, yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
It can't look like crap.
Well, no, it
Nice.
can't look like crap, and I agree with you, but in the town
You got that?
center,
Yeah.
can't look like crap.
I don't know.
Make sure that's-
Quotes.
No, but honestly, Mike, I think the question, what I'm asking is the Forest Service or National Forest look necessary in just, I'm only talking about the downtown area, do we want that appearance in the downtown area to the potential detriment of having the development that we need?
All things true, so that, you know, the issue that you bring up, which is very important, is development of the town is very important. But we don't want everything to look like a forest, but somewhere there is a happy medium between looking really nice, and you can look really nice without having a tree every 4 feet. You can look very, very nice through landscaping and other things, as opposed to, and I'll go back to what Bill says when we talk about our parking lots that look like crap. There is a happy medium that we have to figure out how to get to.
So what you're raising is the 10 million, that's the 10-pound gorilla that's in the room.
You know, I like
But
the $10 million.
it could be the same.
Yeah. Because that's
No,
exactly
it
what
is
it
absolutely
is,
true, but all
You're
of which what Mark is just talking about all comes back to the concept, which is
Right.
really, really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
I
That
think,
it is more than just numbers.
It is more than enough.
It's more than numbers. What you're looking for is a way to develop the town that's gonna spark development. You know, I
Spark
don't wanna
development.
build something and then have it turn out to be,
Development,
you
value,
know, right,
heads
it's gonna
and
add
beds.
value.
all of these
Right,
things.
all those are very, very important to this town at this juncture.
And interrelated.
Right, absolutely. So couldn't agree with you more.
so why wouldn't we, they are different laws, but why wouldn't we go out to a place like, pick your ski area, your favorite ski area out west, and look at the streetscape, okay, and say, that's what we kind of want to look like.
Yeah.
All right, and then try to understand how they got that area to look the way it looks.
Didn't you get that from your pedestrian
Yeah, I was
village
just gonna
study
say,
though? I mean, that was,
Yes, they
that
did,
consultant
yes,
does that, and
well,
works for a lot of
yeah.
other resort communities.
and
And
yes, we
recommended
did.
a
But-
denser core with smaller setbacks.
But when that same consultant came in and told the planning board how they would recommend to do that, it was turned down. because there was a development plan. There was a different setback, different heights, different, he told you how to do that. And we said no.
Well, we end up saying that people have different opinions about
Yes.
different parts of their recommendation.
Right.
And, some people want on-street parking, other people are opposed to on-street parking.
Right.
Some people want single-family housing in the center of town, other people say, I don't want it. I just
Right.
want Nelson Woods to stay the way it
Right.
is.
Right.
And
Right.
we're gonna have to struggle through all that stuff.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that we're not talking about changing is the 20% open space. in the BCNC one, so you guaranteed, you make the setback on the road smaller, that
Right.
it doesn't mean you're doing away with all the green space. It means you're making the person walking by it on a sidewalk or pedestrian way closer to the windows and the door, like you want in a village center.
Right.
And a compromise over 0 lot line might be to consider 10 feet for the setback from the right of way and, or from a paved edge of an internal road. And then there's room for the private developer to provide the pedestrian way in the 10-foot.
Absolutely. And all I'm saying is how you communicate that to people and how you get them, because I agree with Bill, there's gonna be 15 different opinions of what it should look like. From a tree every 4 feet to, the store entrance right at the sidewalk edge, you're gonna run that whole gamut. And I think whatever you settle on, whether it's 10 feet or whatever, you're gonna have to try to, because people had a misconception of what that was gonna look like. So it's all in how it gets communicated.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking that one of our problems is that it depends on the nature of development. What we're struggling with is that no one's coming in any longer with the proposed bigger plan. Here's 4 acres and how I propose to handle these 4 acres. What they come in with is an individual lot and say, I'm gonna put up a building, because it meets all these criteria. So we're talking about little chunks, and we're getting developed chunk by chunk by chunk, as opposed to what we would, I thought the whole thing with PUDs was to encourage people to come in with a larger plan. Here's what I want to do conceptually, and then I'd be willing to waive all the setbacks and everything else if they came in with a rational plan. But that's
Yes.
not what we get.
That's right.
What we get is little chunks of, and my fear of dividing everything into smaller and smaller lots is we'll end up with little railroad cars sitting on tiny 1/8 of an acre plots. Well, I've seen these in California. They're terrible. Or you can go right down to Owl's Nest and take a look at them. That's what they built.
And it's not
And that's
coherent.
not because of zoning. It's just because they wanted to build them.
Right. It's not coherent
Right.
development. Yeah.
Yeah, and I struggle with why, I guess I understand, there is no developer wants to take the risk on a larger plan anymore. They don't want to take the risk.
It was very interesting when we went to the planning board, whatever meeting in conference in Concord.
Yeah,
And one of the first things that was talked about right, early on was exactly that situation
yeah,
and what they were doing. It was very interesting to listen to some of the people that were there and talking about exactly the problem that Bill was talking about. It was really good education.
But don't you deal with some of that by means of architectural standards? We have pretty loose architectural standards in that
Right.
And I think you see a lot of these towns that develop and they look nice. It's because of the architectural standards that they go by. They require that the McDonald's look like a local home. I don't know if you've
Oh,
been
yeah,
to
yeah.
Freeport,
Oh,
seen that McDonald's
Yeah.
up there, but you wouldn't know it was a McDonald's.
But they have
And
enough,
that's all by architectural standards.
Right, but they have an architectural review board and they have full-time staff and they,
I know, but our whole architectural standards is like 5 lines.
Oh, I
Yeah,
agree.
non-existent.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
that's because the authority for that in New Hampshire is a little bit more vague,
They don't give the towns the authority
not,
to control it.
not as deliberately as.
Isn't that precisely the reason that we want to emphasize rewriting the master plan? We're supposed to have this overview.
Yeah, an overview of the,
What this town is supposed to look like and how
right,
it will
and
look
why
10
we
years from
want
now.
to, why we want to develop in a certain way,
Yes.
right? That to me remains the critical question.
The master plan is an enormous
You know,
project.
I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I agree with Craig's opinion as well, that, these tend to drag on and take forever. But they should, that's, for me, it's the essence of what a planning board ought to be doing.
Yep.
Which is struggling with the issue of, this is gonna be a resort town, most likely. I mean, we're not gonna invite any other industry in. So therefore, what do we have to do to encourage this to have a resort that's vibrant again?
Mhm.
What has to happen for a resort to get vibrant? That question has gotta be answered. And I don't care who answers it,
But
but,
it sounds like that the master plan is supposed to be the directive document.
right,
It's supposed to be the document that tells us how we're supposed to plan each of our budgets.
right. Yeah,
You're supposed to be able to read the master plan and say that the capital improvement program comes out of it.
right. As opposed to a list of things that need replacing.
Yes.
So
So,
would the
Yes.
architectural standards be in the master plan or in our actual, like, planning board, documentations, like?
You think it's zoning?
I got lost a couple of minutes ago with the amount of detail you're talking about for budget for being in the master plan. Seems like you're blurring that into a capital improvement program. The master plan.
No, but it's
General.
certain aspects of it should anticipate. If we want to really
It should-
encourage
it should-
trail
it
development
should
here
talk
for
about-
bicycles and the rest.
Right,
For example.
Some point in time, someone's got to wrestle with, that's going to take space and it's going to take money. It's not going to happen be out of the goodness of some landowners, who thinks he's going to have, if with the town wants that to happen. And I'm not saying it does, but if it does, it's got to figure out how to make it happen.
yes.
What, two things. What should happen? Who should do?
Right.
And what should happen and how it gets done.
How it gets done,
funded.
absolutely.
I mean, that's
And
It's no
then
different
classic,
than any business.
classic
nothing
things
happens
we
without
do.
money.
Right, no,
Classic things of what we
but
used to
so
do.
you're,
right.
your pedestrian village study did get you part of the way there, and
Yes, it did.
what would make your zoning more consistent with it would be to reduce the size of these setbacks in the BC and C1. I mean, I could see, to throw out, would you want to consider changing the 20s to 10s and the 35s to 20s, or,
I have a question. Theoretically, if someone came in and wanted to do something, and they could not do it because the current setback is 35. Pick one of them. And it had to go down to 20. Is that something that we and or the selectmen could not issue a variance for?
So zoning board issues a variance, and that would be an illegal one.
Huh?
That would be an
It'd be
illegal
illegal.
one. It's,
Okay.
you
You're
can't,
not supposed to do that.
Right.
But you could,
you would have,
in your PUD descriptions, you're allowed to vary some of that.
Right.
right, they could apply for a PUD.
Yeah, they could apply for a PUD status.
Right.
And I would encourage
Yeah.
people to do that.
And that's what
You know?
that's for.
Right.
But,
So if
it could
anything,
get-
I'd like to reduce the amount of space that's required for a PUD.
That might make more sense.
but you just said you don't want them piecemeal, and it's
Well, no, I
already an
don't.
acre in the.
Right,
Yeah.
is that what it is now, an
Yeah.
I
acre?
think
That's
we
pretty
changed it,
small.
I think that's what we did. I think it's down to, I think we changed it to an acre and
Well, that's fine.
the BC.
That's
It's
pretty,
How is an
that's
acre
pretty
in
finite.
In
BC
VC and
and
C1,
and
that's right.
2 acres in the other, something like, we did make it smaller, but But you still, if it's not a PUD, these setbacks are pretty big for a village center. Especially this, the 35 feet from the LDR, the 35
Any
feet.
building can row off the street.
So here's my concern, and when I was and we should use Owl's Nest as an example. They built in Owl's Nest, some stay and play cottages, all right? These are relatively small units on small pieces of property. And, well, you could argue they don't look like crap. I mean, but, you know, regardless. I mean, but it's like, it's haphazard. It wasn't what they originally envisioned, but it's what they think they can sell. And by reducing setbacks, that's what we're encouraging people to build. And the question is that what we want? Do we want a little
What's the connection in
800 square foot
Why-
home on an eighth of an acre? Well, that's the argument about just trying to increase density.
We
to
still
me.
have the 20% open space.
Well, yeah,
But we're talking about VC and C1, commercial stuff.
right.
And you have a 25%
We
maximum
got rid
lot
of the
coverage.
single family homes from the VC and, or. from
Well,
the
no,
C1.
but that
Wait a
was
minute,
that's
just
why
go
it
back.
got turned down last
Just go
time,
back
because
to
we
what
were
you said.
talking about
If I'm on
changing
an
that.
eighth of an acre,
I'm
Right.
still trying to.
use a building lot, all right?
Mhm.
4,000 square feet, building lot, building acre, because I can do the math without taking my. 40,000 square feet, eighth of an acre is 5,000 square feet. If I'm gonna build 1,000 square foot, one level house, that still leaves 4,000 square feet
Right, left
of
over.
open space, right? Which would fit within that 20%, I think.
But
So that's not what, I think, that's not
You
what.
need to look higher up in the table,
Yeah.
Bill. There's a 25% maximum lot coverage for residences in the VC.
and single family homes, which that small cottage would be a
They're
single
not
family
allowed in
home.
the C1.
They're not allowed in the C1 zone.
I agree, they
And-
weren't, but my concern
Right,
is all along that once we approve them for VC,
Yeah.
there would be pressure to approve them for C1 as well.
We just say no.
You say no?
just,
Well, we have a habit of not doing that.
But you're trying to go the
but
other way.
we're trying to go
and
the other
have
way.
less.
I think that we would try to take them out of VC because again, commercial is where we want the commercial development. And people can have, we've already controlled the size of the single family home lots in low density and high density residential by making it a half acre building lot, right?
Yeah,
And so you're not going to get the small cottages that aren't what we want in town by controlling the size of those lots. But those lot sizes and those setbacks, if you don't reduce them, you're not going to get the commercial development.
I contend that we're not gonna get the commercial development, period. Who is gonna build a commercial development here in this town right now? Why? What are they gonna do with it?
But we're
That's
also,
what that's why we have a new development company. They bought the land to
Right,
do commercial developments.
and their job isn't doing it for
Our
right
job
now,
is
we're doing it for
to
10
just
years.
encourage, set up the
we're
playing
talking
field.
around the same.
No,
subjects
we're,
over and over.
the goal is to set up the playing field so that you're encouraging the development. That's what we should be trying to do. We shouldn't be trying to make it harder for a developer to come in and build what they envision building as a commercial development. Shouldn't we want to be setting it up so that we can have more?
Can there be variable setbacks within a particular zone? In other words, if you say, we have a VC zone, but in VC, you can have residential or you can have commercial. Is it possible within a VC zone to have setbacks that apply to residential and different setbacks that
Yeah.
apply to
Sure.
commercial? Wouldn't that get us closer to where you want to go then?
If you don't feel you're covered by the, only the 25% maximum lot coverage only applies to residences already.
Mhm.
So that's kind of
Similar
guaranteeing
to it, yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be guaranteed. So,
what you think, they're not gonna put it up against the
Right.
edge and everything. But yeah, you could do it.
That might be one way to combat what Phil's concerned about. And to address what Mark wants.
well, I'm only trying to think of 20 years down the road
Right.
and having the tax base when everything is built that we need to have to maintain the town. I mean,
But
there's
see,
gonna be
there's a flip
costs
side
do
to what you're saying, Mark, and that comes back to what Bill is saying. And that is, it's a chicken and egg. Which comes first? Increasing the attractiveness for development.
Mhm.
Right? In other words, making the resort or whatever more attractive. Or the builder, which do you do first? And from a business advisor in my previous life point of view, I'm not gonna recommend that someone come in and make a major development unless or until they can see that it's gonna succeed,
Right?
right? So, you do have this chicken from an old fashioned business point of view, which comes first?
Well, right now, you have this village pedestrian plan and master plan that say you want a dense, robust, vibrant village center. But as a planner, I look at your zoning and say, well, no, you don't.
No, you
You
don't.
want it to look rural residential.
Exactly. Exactly.
Agreed?
And that's all I'm saying is let's set up the playing field so that the developer can come in and do what we say we want to do.
Without getting to, I don't know what the proper term to use, but things that do not fit whatever the actual image of the town we want.
But if you
And this
look,
is hard.
if you look at the pedestrian study, all of those things are addressed. Being pedestrian friendly, having paths that are.
And where is
based in
the drive to make that happen? Where's that coming from? I agree that study said we need to create a view of the town that's different. But then when we try to tackle, we discuss pieces of it, like we talked about parking. You're gonna have to change. They talked about building a parking garage,
That's right,
right?
that's right.
Who's working on that?
Who's paying for that?
Well, I mean,
Well, right now,
I have no idea.
actually-
Nobody's working on it. What
Nobody's
we're working
working
on is reducing the zoning.
No, but what we're saying is, nobody's working on the parking garage or, because we are not set up in our regulations, like she just said.
Well,
We're
if
not
I-
set up in our regulations.
Then I'm back to the chicken and egg. I
But
mean,
then
if
it's
you
about-
give me
but then
the
it's
plan
about
on the
development,
garage,
right.
I'll give you the plan of what needs to be changed in the zoning to accommodate it.
Oh, no, I think it
You're
goes
saying
exactly the opposite way.
you're saying if I reduce the zoning, somehow somebody will figure out, oh, I ought to build a parking
No,
garage.
that's not what I'm saying.
No.
What I'm saying is, nobody is going to come in with a plan that would give us the density we need to build the parking garage until we change the zoning so that they can see that they could propose something. They can't propose
But they can get
something
the square
that's gonna,
footage to pay
that's
for
gonna,
it.
that's right.
I would contend that you have a lot of flexibility and maybe we ought to rewrite the PUD. We're saying it's an acre. Within that, you have all the flexibility in the world you want, as long as you meet certain requirements.
Yeah,
What's
we did
wrong with
that.
that?
We did that already.
Yeah, I know we've done that.
I mean, it's.
And doesn't that give somebody all the flexibility in the world to do something?
If it's a PUD. If they wanna,
They
If-
want to
if-
develop less than an acre.
Right, well, if it's less than an acre, I wonder what they're doing.
A parking garage.
No, I don't think so.
No, I just,
Underground parking garage.
That'd be perfect.
but if someone, let's say that there's
With a tree. every
20
4 feet
acres
of-
left, 10 or 15 acres left in the middle of town, and I'm a
Right.
developer, and I come in and I build my 1 acre PUD. And then right next door to me, there isn't further commercial development because the next person comes along and builds 3 single-family homes beside it. You know, it doesn't make any sense. We've got to show developers that we have protected this center of town for the
Well, then,
development.
why don't we go back and reread the study that was done, that everybody poo-pooed,
Absolutely.
and see exactly what it says. And what do we have to change in order to make that vision come true?
well, that's
We-
what I
we
was
actually-
hired for last year, and that's what I've been working with you
So,
on.
okay, and
That's
you're
what-
saying we
that's
gotta
what brought
drive
me here.
you're saying if we just make this one change, that's all we need to do?
To get a parking garage, I didn't say that. I
No.
recommended a lot of changes along the
No,
way.
we've recommended a lot.
Lighting and parking and
Yeah.
density and getting the residential use out of the VC, that didn't
Right.
go over too well, but.
Maybe we could take a step
Yeah.
forward and
Can we-
actually
can
do
we
what
try
you
to do it
recommend.
again?
Do it.
Let's do it.
I don't, you know, with
But all of
a
these
lot
have
of
been
dialogue,
pieces,
let's just say that that's a damn good idea.
all of
It is.
these have been
Shouldn't be
pieces
single
implementing that
families.
plan.
No.
And I
It
didn't
is.
wanna I didn't wanna forget to answer your question, I was just trying to circle back to where we were. You asked about the architectural standard. It's vague in New Hampshire law about having those, other than in, historic district. Your town attorney is comfortable with what you have in the zoning now. It would be good to make sure that your master plan supports that, provides a foundation for it. Does that make sense?
Can we strengthen it though? I mean, if we wanted to.
Well, that, I guess, that's more a question for the town attorney, because I'm just, to me, I feel like that design is in a gray area when it's not in a historic district.
Okay, what do we have to do to accept Tara's recommendation?
Well, wait a minute, let me go back to the architectural standard for a minute here, because ours are pretty loose, but you're saying in the state of New Hampshire, if it's not a historic district, they really don't give you much.
Different, I'm saying that different municipal attorneys have different views on it,
Okay,
and you should continue to work with yours on that.
Right. The
Because
definition we
yours is who
got
has to defend you in court.
Is it
was
hard
as
to get
long
in
as they were
historic districts?
specific, not arbitrary.
Right.
You can get away with them. But you can't say it has the look and feel of a New England
Oh,
skiing
that's always
community. You know,
true.
that
That's
stuff
always-
is gonna get struck
That's
down.
always true for any regulation.
Right, yeah. But
The
if you
planning
make
board's
them,
authority, but zoning power, over design is what's not clear.
oh, okay.
It's not just that you have to be clear, it's the authority is not clear. and-
Well, what we have right now is not, it's pretty arbitrary. But then again, we never try to enforce them, so.
Yeah.
uh,
My recommendation's usually, if you're not enforcing something, get it out of there, but,
Right,
but it seems like it's working for you, so.
Mark, should we talk to town council and get some sort of an opinion?
On
Well, you-
the architectural.
You have, he's
yeah.
written in support of what you have already. The first year that I did zoning amendments with you, I was in touch with him about that piece,
On the architect?
Yeah.
And he said, what we have is fine, don't go any further.
right?
Okay.
I don't think he said that don't go any further, but he was comfortable with. I asked him specifically, is this authorized under zoning, and he said yes.
Have you seen architectural standards from other towns that make you comfortable?
No,
Is there like a package, we got like 5 lines, that seems inadequate.
I-
But is there
It's,
something,
it's not, it's not clear that architectural standards are authorized in design.
Hmm.
So it's not something I work with.
that's the problem.
All right, and Bill, you said something about you wanted to.
Yes, Tara made the recommendations for altering the
Okay.
setbacks in C1.
And DC,
Okay, understood.
That
And that, if this is a good idea and we agree upon it, what do we do? The next step to say we accept it and we're going to incorporate it.
VC is now owned by a single entity. Is that true?
No.
not the whole
C1
district.
is.
Not the whole district.
C1 is?
The majority of C1 is owned by,
Tyrell.
yes.
Except for my little piece.
Well,
Well-
right, that
And
which
other
is
than other
owned by
pieces.
individual owners
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
Right.
But you asked a question, and that is,
Yeah.
who is the dominant landowner in C1?
Right.
No doubt. So what does that do for you?
Well, the question then becomes, they would have to be the dominant developer.
Yeah.
Almost because of what they own, almost the
No
exclusive
question about
developer,
it.
almost the exclusive developer.
Yes.
That would be my feeling also.
Tara, what, does this, if this was to be adopted, does this get added to the table in the zoning,
What? I don't know what you're reading.
the setbacks?
The setback recommendations,
This is what you have now.
right.
And this is,
The table you have is what you have now. This is,
Right.
where is it is it in the
you don't
zoning
have
ordinance?
it, you don't have a table right now, but
Okay. all
I
right,
made the
that's what-
table to show you what you have.
And this is, my question is, if this was to be, if we were to adopt the table, as opposed to being infiltrated throughout, does this get added to the table of zoning in the zoning ordinance?
Yeah, I mean, you
Is that what
could,
you're saying?
I wasn't really thinking about that. I just put it all in a table so you could see what you have all in one place.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
makes
could
sense.
easily reformat it to be a table in the ordinance too, but I just did this so you could see what you have.
And this isn't changing anything. This is just
This is
compiling.
just showing you what you have and it's showing you in the red and blue.
Okay.
What you changed last year. But what I think we're talking about, for example, might be in the 4th row in the BC column, where it's 35 feet setback between any building and the right of way of any street. Would you want to consider changing that to 10 or 20 or?
just a point of clarification, if it's a retail building, there is no setback requirement. That's correct, right?
No, that was done away with. It was replaced with making PUDs be down to 1 acre.
Oh, okay. So there's no longer the exemption for retail.
It should, you
But-
should have
but
the table you-
PUDs,
the table you have should say that at the bottom. It should say retail exceptions replaced in March 2019.
right.
I missed that the first time I set it up. I should have that now.
Or should we look at Terry's suggestion for BC, have different setbacks for residential and commercial?
You could.
We
You don't
should
tell
know
me
what
to
that
I'm
is.
still stuck on why do you have residential in there, but,
No, I know.
all
We
right.
don't have residential in there, not in C1.
No, we're in the
BC
BC. We're in the
In
BC column.
BC.
Where you,
It's because that's the way the original zoning was for. I mean, it
Well,
was
no, we tried to-
written.
we tried to
you
do
recommended it last
single
time, but it
family.
didn't go well.
Yeah.
That was one of the 7 that didn't
Yeah.
pass.
Or we didn't even make it.
One of number,
Yeah.
Well, to reduce the lot size for single-family homes, right, in BC.
That's what failed to pass.
That's what failed to pass.
So ideally, Tara, what do you see for BC being a good setback?
But you,
Ten?
you pulled the elimination of the single and two family before you got to the
Yes.
multi-family.
Because of the property owner.
Right,
So what would you think ideally, if maybe 10?
I would
BC?
recommend 10.
Should we relook at C1 and bring that to 10 foot?
I would recommend that. I mean, that has room for cables and a walkway and.
So in BC and C1, you're recommending the reduction from 35 to 10.
I'd recommend the front setbacks in BC and C1 be 10, whether it's from the right of way or the paved in. I think that covers everything.
So the line right under it, that fifth one, setback for off-street parking at 5 foot. Can you just remind me what that is?
That's the setback between parking lots and streets.
Parking lots and,
Any
Oh,
off-street
gotcha.
parking,
Off-street, sorry,
any
that's right,
off-street
right,
parking.
yeah. gotcha, okay.
I see.
And I would just recommend that would be good to encourage the pedestrianization because you're closing things down. You're making it tighter.
Yeah.
So people are more apt, especially in the winter, to walk.
Yeah.
Let them put the parking right up, as long as we can maintain it.
Where do you put the snow?
Say
Yeah,
that
that's
again,
the
Mark.
problem. The only issue is the 5-foot setback gives us a place, a very small space to put the snow. That's our problem here is the winter maintenance of these lots. And the streets. I mean, the winter like last year, you saw it, you saw how narrow. But that's living here, that's.
Are you good with the 5 feet?
I am, because I think the plus side to that is that you're encouraging people to walk. People aren't using the parking lots the way they are now because they can't walk from where they park to where they're going. I think we should get it closer and move it in. It's gonna be a pain in the butt to maintain in the winter. We'll have to figure that out, but right now we've got all these parking lots and nobody uses them. So
Right.
why are we,
Right.
why don't we try something else?
And they don't use them because,
They don't use them because they end up being too far away and they can't, when you park your car in the middle of those lots at Town Square, you can't even see where you want to go.
Right.
We've got to make it so that people can use it. It's more user friendly. It's horrible the way it is. The trees in the middle of the freaking lots, you can't see anything.
Well, and plus it's petrifying to have parked in the middle of a cluster and then go out, 9, 10
Right.
o'clock at night when it's pitch black, slip on ice, knock yourself out.
Right,
It
and then you're
Sounds like
dead.
it's
And then
Yeah.
you're dead.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
freeze to death and
That
no one
sounds
even
like
knows
our
that.
experience.
Maybe we'll find you in March when the snow starts
know.
melting.
that's
Where did Wendy go? I don't know.
So how about for the next one, principal building and the side or rear lines? Do you want to change that too? Does that make sense to be 10 and 20 instead of 20 and 35?
yes.
Do we know how big 5 feet actually is?
We lost 2 people, one nod and one yes. I'm not sure that's.
Yeah, I mean, 5 feet is,
5 feet is
It's
less
not-
than the width of this table.
No, that's 4 feet. So add a foot to the width of that
No,
table.
no, I
This-
said length
this
of
Oh,
this table.
the
It's-
length.
that's probably 6 feet.
That's 6 feet.
This is
That's
6 feet,
6
so it's that.
That's right.
Yes, I agree. It's
All right.
very close, but
I mean, my issue is, I'm looking at this and that ain't a whole lot of room, to put it colloquially.
well,
So what do you want to do?
I would kind of compromise a little bit for now, and instead of going 5, which I think is really narrow,
Mhm.
can
Make
we
it
like
6.
go? I was thinking more in terms of 10.
For the parking?
Street parking?
But off-street, we're talking,
It's
this
just
is not the
parking
building,
lots.
this
I know that.
is just the parking lot.
I know, and it's just me looking at going from a yard to 5 feet is an enormous change.
Wait, now this is what we have right now, what you pulled together in the chart, right?
Yeah,
This is what we have.
Yeah.
You have,
Change you're suggesting.
you're suggesting changing it from 5 to 10.
Well, maybe.
you're in,
5
We
now.
already have
It's
5
5 now.
and so I'm being nuts.
5 seems close to me because there's no
5 is
room
just
for
nuts.
a sidewalk and landscaping. Actually. And put,
You know,
somewhere to put snow.
When 5 feet is so narrow that if you can barely have 2 people walk shoulder to shoulder.
Isn't the sidewalk going to be on the town right away though?
yes, the sidewalk is within the right of way. Again, it's like, what are you defining the measurement from?
I agree.
So,
That's, I guess maybe
If
that's,
it's the
maybe
right
that's
of
my
way-
hang up.
Well, if it's edge of pavement, yes, 5 feet is probably too narrow, but if it's 5 feet from the edge of the right of way, the sidewalk,
Which
if
is,
we do it right, needs to be within the right of way.
then which is,
Yeah. So-
which is
Well, I don't
the,
know.
Read it, it says between
It's 5 feet now, so.
the last and the right of way, not the last.
Right,
It says right of way,
right.
so
So we were, Bill, you missed, I asked for the principal building and the side and rear lot lines, if you want to consider changing that from 20 and 35 to 10 and 20.
For BC and
For
C.
C1 or BC and
C1.
C1.
Yeah, for both.
Okay. So which one are you proposing to change? Principal building and any other lot line?
Right.
Okay.
So
And
So
that's
that
what
brings
changed.
us to these messy accessory building language. Bill, you had a clear suggestion on that. Was it 6 feet but no more than 2 stories?
I have never figured out what that ratio means. And I looked around town at where it's accessory buildings that are, what's the most common to use? And it seems to me they're either work sheds or standalone garages. Now, my property has got a standalone garage. And I guarantee it doesn't meet, it's 5 feet from the property line, but it's two plus stories tall. What do you want? I would think that if somebody's building
Your garage.
single family home, that, accessory building, you're gonna have to allow them two stories at least, right?
What if you made,
well, how high is 2 stories, 20 feet?
Well, I don't
hold
know.
hold on a
Yeah.
second, if
Yeah.
you were
20
going, what about just going to, as I said before, going from buildings to structures, and then accessory building would be 10 feet as well.
In other words, make the distance of the property line, change the distance of the property line.
Just don't even talk about whether it's a principal building or an accessory building, and make it a 10-foot setback for structures.
Whatever is there, yes.
And then when someone remakes their garage into a in-law house, it doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter.
That's right.
And whoever
Right.
wants to put other thing other than a building. You don't have to try to.
And well,
argue
let me give
about
you another
is it a building?
example.
Let's
I
think a
just
little
so
bit about how that
that
affects
we realize
the
that that just built within the last year was Willie Peckham's little garage that he put. Now, it's not 35 feet from the right of way because it's an accessory building. Now, were you now saying that would have to be 35 feet from the right of way? Because it's just considered any building?
No, because.
No,
we're
10,
changing
they're
it
gonna
to 20.
change
Change it to
they're
10.
gonna change the
6 to 10.
setback.
Called
So
structure.
10 would apply to all buildings?
But that would apply
All
to
structures.
the other,
All structures.
but the other thing we need to circle back and think about if the setbacks apply to all structures not specifically buildings, then you are saying 35 feet in the HDR, and LDR.
But go back.
Or the
to
little
question,
garage.
back to
Well,
the
those are
question.
the ones that I see are in the LDR and more in the LDR than the HDR.
Yeah, so we need
but
to think
there's-
about those kind of separately.
Yeah,
But you have the little, you have the little bike sheds and other things in the HDR.
right,
so-
but that's not what predominantly gets built.
No.
What's getting built are
Garages.
fairly sizable storage facilities, and they tend to have second floors on them. Or at least the roof peaks up to a second floor.
And it
I don't know
seems-
whether there's
And it
actually
probably
a
makes
physical
sense for
second
those
floor.
to meet the same setback as a principal structure. But we can think about,
Well, when it looks,
Oh,
it went,
I
it
know,
at least
a lot
looks
like
like
that
a second.
at a
real
half
structure.
acre.
He went, but you get to these 2 and 3 car garages like that, all right?
Yeah,
And they clearly look like, I don't want to call them like a real building.
right,
Your garage,
right. It looks like a real building,
I
but
mean, I'm
it's
not-
considered
I'm not
an
what I'm gonna
accessory
pick on,
building because it's not attached to the house.
right,
but what if you said under a certain size, then it would have this special accessory building setback that's only 10 feet. Well, it's less complicated than what you
Yeah.
have.
okay.
We're still gonna
But
be.
what size would you recommend? 100 square feet? 10 by 10? That means somebody could build a bike shed, but couldn't build a garage. I mean, garage is.
Well, they
400
could
square
build the
feet.
garage, but it would have to be 35 feet from the road.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a garage, your garage, my garage is
They're big.
500 square feet.
Yeah, at least, yeah,
Yeah,
400 anyway, 20 by 20.
yeah, right. They're bigger than
Four
that.
or
Right.
500 square feet at least, which is not small. I mean, there are houses that are almost that size.
So my only
I'd be
question is
thinking more like
that's what
100.
tends to get built. What do we really want to do?
See, yeah, I'm with.
That's a
Bill.
real structure.
It's a real structure and we tend to allow them closer to the property lines and the roads
Yes.
than the principal house.
Why?
I don't know
Why
why.
you would
I
wanna
mean,
put a
it's, you go
No,
look
I
at
would
Willie
put my garage
Peckham's,
close
is
to the
what
house.
he done, what has he done? Is that
Chris,
bad? I mean,
I'm not making it, I'm saying
yeah,
a
I know.
garage, when you look at a 2-car
He
garage,
couldn't have built
is a
that. I don't
minimum
think
of
he could
400
have built
square
that. And stayed within his building and, you know, if the rule was 35 feet off the right of way,
he couldn't do it.
I don't know if he could have done it.
Mhm.
I guess, or, you know, he certainly didn't choose to do that.
But I think that-
As it stands, the garages need a setback of 10 feet. Now, if you walk around town, I don't see any real, abuse of that
Of 10
situation.
feet.
Of 10
Of
feet, yeah,
10
I mean, nothing looks out of whack or
I
crazy,
don't think
because
so.
typically garages are, now, maybe you have a 2-story, but typically garages are 1-story. So if it's going to be an issue of what the structure should be described as, if it's a garage, you could give it a square footage and a height. You could say, if you're gonna meet this 10 setback requirement, can't be more than 400 square
Well,
feet.
that was, I thought, what that height to setback ratio
Yeah,
meant.
well, we're
But-
sort of
but
doing
I had
that.
no
ratio is
idea what it
going-
meant.
Yeah, but I don't think it's being enforced because nobody knows what it means.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, Terry, that's partially true. Because, for example, our garage, which is on the other side, so it doesn't matter. But when we had it built, theoretically, we had it built so that we could put storage above, which a lot of people do. That's where they keep their kayaks and things like
Right.
that. So it's
But it can usually
really
be within the
almost,
gabled portion of it,
yeah,
so.
it's above the
Part of the
cable,
roof, yeah.
above the cabling, whatever.
When you have a minimum roof pitch of
Pitch.
8 inches, you do have some automatic attic
Right,
space.
but
Right.
it almost takes it up to a 2-story building,
Yeah, but you could,
Well, it
again,
did. The height wise, it becomes a 2-story building.
kind of.
I don't know what my question is really, do we want to restrict people from building accessory buildings? And they're primarily going to build storage sheds. And if they're going to build them with a gable roof, which is what we want, it's gonna be 2 stories high. It's
So what
by
about-
definition.
What about the 400 square feet or less? 400 square feet and 20 feet high
Yeah,
as maximums, and then that can be within 10.
that gives
And
you
the
two
primary
car
can
garages.
stay
and
35.
That gives you
Yeah.
a small
Yeah.
two-car garage.
I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm
wouldn't
okay with 20
automatically say-
feet, as long as it's 2 stories.
I mean, I'm
You
just
know.
throwing numbers out there for you
Yeah, I
guys
was
to
gonna
think
say,
about.
check the
but-
20 by 20.
Yeah, I know.
I wanna go measure my garage.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
what I was thinking is everybody.
But
always
everybody
measure
measure
on
it to
the-
measure your garage, and no, that's
That's
absolutely.
everybody's
the way it
homework
should.
for the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, typically you get numbers like 26 by 23.
Yeah, the bigger two-car garages would be more than 400 square feet.
but I mean,
Oh, yeah,
maybe,
ours is footprint wise,
Yeah.
it's at least, it's.
but maybe
Yeah.
if it
Half
gets
car
that
garage.
big though, maybe if
Yeah.
it is an actual 2-car garage, maybe you do want
Well, you
that.
could do a scale, like.
You
this
could
is
do
what
a
Andrew's
scale.
saying. Yeah, you
Yeah.
could do a- if it's this size, it has to be, have to be
10.
10 feet, if it's
Yeah.
this size, it has to be 15, this size, which I think is what that ratio was trying to do.
Was trying to,
But it wasn't very clear.
Okay, so we're all going home, that's right, right.
And we'll put a definition in that's
It doesn't make
better than
sense
what you have now for.
to get a
accessory
bigger
buildings.
number.
Yeah.
That is, if you had a 25 by 25,
That's
that's
huge.
625 square feet.
that's big.
Well, that's what, if you look around town, what's being built now is new construction,
Mhm.
about that size. I think
That's
back
too big
to
for 10
Tara's
people.
recommendations that I
Yeah.
think they're acceptable
Let's put some
We can
measuring
talk
and come
here
back,
for-
yeah.
for a long time.
I think you wanna think too about, as we try to define accessory building, what makes it acceptable to be closer to the lot line, like that it's uninhabited and it maybe doesn't contain any machinery, noise. I try to think ahead to other businesses that could have
As-
accessory.
Yeah,
And
and not
that's-
to, that's where I was going, because we're talking a lot about LDR and HDR, but not necessarily rec. And, thinking about the other applications for accessory buildings and how we need to define them there.
Yeah, so we can just talk about garage and shed, but
Yeah.
what, more like a performance standard, what. makes
Yeah,
it
and that's
acceptable.
important because we're seeing that like on Stone Tower Lane. We've had the garage that was converted into a inhabited
In-law
building,
suite.
in-law suite.
Yeah.
You know, so those sorts of things. So like the performance level, I think is important because
I
there was
thought
some
that
questions
somehow we
about.
had some rules that said you're not supposed to do that.
Well, yeah, but they weren't clear enough to keep
To
that.
prevent some,
to
I
prevent it.
do
And
remember that.
What happened was they left
When
plumbing.
the beer
out of it.
growers bought
Yes,
theirs,
so they,
they got an exception.
well, no,
I
they
thought,
didn't put any plumbing in that building. They're using the main house for the plumbing. And there was a hole in our wording that allowed them
oh,
to
okay.
have
God
people
help you.
So
sleeping
it's separate
there.
plumbing, because there's plumbing in the building.
Try to help you if you have
Well,
to out in the middle of the night.
No, but
Put it
that,
outside.
I mean, there were holes like that though that allowed
Yeah.
people to do things. So I like what Tara's recommending. Makes it a lot easier to enforce.
Could say no structure except blah, 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 can be in the setback, and then those can be, you could do it in a positive rather than
Yeah,
negative,
yeah,
right, too.
yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I'll have a crack at what I think we said for the next meeting. That'll be my homework, and yours is to measure your garages, but also look at your neighbor's garages and how big they seem.
And
compared to how close
particularly
to the lot line is.
standalone, you know, because it's an accessory building, it can't be an attached garage. It's gotta be a separate garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there aren't that many of them. I mean, but, because we built ours the way we built it, because you couldn't get it on the lot otherwise.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
For purposes of discussion next time, Tara, could you put a number in front of the row? Which is
Sure.
a lot easier to refer to than the wordage in there.
Sure.
Is this in Excel?
No,
No.
It was,
It's a word.
Looks like we're.
yeah, it was emailed.
It's a word table,
It's a PDF.
It's a PDF.
It's a word table.
it's a word table.
It's a word table, word.
Okay.
I had to leave my shed at my last house because I couldn't meet this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Oh, you had to
and it
leave
was
your
nice
shed.
and I had
Right.
just bought it. Just-
Okay, is that the extent of our discussion this time?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna hang out to meet with Nick after.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. And Dick, and now, Tara, you'll be coming next meeting, right?
Yeah, I'll have, I'll mark what I think are the changes and
Okay.
some language.
Put on the agenda for next time.
Time for a question?
Yes?
What did it cost to do the pedestrian study?
$90,000.
What would it cost to do a parking study?
I don't,
That seems to be, every time we talk about it, that's one of the principal points of aggravation with respect to how this town looks and how the town operates. And if we're gonna fix it, then I think we need to talk to somebody who has depth and experience in designing parking areas
We've kind of
and
brought
try to
in,
do something about it.
yeah, like we've brought in some folks from North Country Council in the past and done other things, but it's really difficult when the town owns none of the parking. They don't kind of throw up their hands and say, well, what do you want us to tell you? You don't own any of it.
Well,
Yeah, but I think the property owners, in return for the right agreement, would gladly give up their rights to the land.
Really?
Oh, I think so.
but
In return for the town agreeing they would maintain the parking facilities,
well,
because they're not maintaining them now.
I can't see how you would, the elephant in the room is always gonna be the same thing.
Yeah,
Always gonna be the Tyrell company. Okay, so how do you go to Tyrell and say to them, this is an intelligent plan?
right.
If we don't have the support of a consultant or somebody really knows what he's
Well,
doing.
I'm right.
You
Yeah,
say,
I
here's the
agree.
proposal, would you agree to forego the rights to that land in order to allow us to do this, to greatly improve the facility of the town?
Yeah.
If we don't do it, I don't see how it's ever gonna happen. But is if we don't have a consultant who has an experienced background to make a proposal, a recommendation, how are you gonna convince the landowner to go ahead with it?
I'm not disagreeing with you.
I would like to review the pedestrian village plan again, see to what extent it actually does talk about parking and how far it gets
I
into
think
it.
it does.
Well, I haven't
It
read
says
so long.
something anyway.
yes, there are a lot of recommendations regarding parking, regarding transportation
Right.
and pedestrianization, all of that. That's all in there.
Okay.
So I
This
think
is, we didn't do it.
well, but I think a STEM might
Little
be
bits and pieces.
for you guys to review that again and agree to what you think it says. And then ask the new property owner to come in and have a conversation with you. And say, here's what we're thinking, you know, I'm not sure they'd be willing to give up the land, but they might be able to change the way the easements are constructed,
Right.
Yeah,
they, you know, or whatever. And
some arrangement
you know,
made.
some change to the current setup.
Yep.
But I think you guys need to agree amongst yourself what it says, and then have a conversation with the.
And I think you gotta attack it in digestible ways
Yeah,
too, because it's
yeah.
gonna cost money and then when you go out of town.
Well,
And you know, you may come to the conclusion that we need a parking study after you talk to the property owner. Maybe there's a public-private sharing of that cost, but until you have that conversation, you don't know.
Who maintains that in the winter?
They do.
They do.
The
And
property
that's the
owner.
problem.
Yeah.
Well,
That is.
Part of the problem.
That's part of the problem, right.
But how are you
And,
gonna,
and really, you know what, it's not even the property owner, it's all of the inns and the town square have easements for that property and they maintain it as part of the easement. So you've got another layer of people with responsibility there.
For
So
certain,
you have, and
or
in
certain,
fact, well, and in fact, the landowner themselves has no responsibility for the maintenance of that lot,
which lot?
any of them,
Any of them.
any of them.
And that's one
It's
of
all
the-
by
It
easement.
has been one of the problems, because how
That's
do you
right.
get them to agree
That's
they
right.
need to repave it?
That's right. And the
The lots
easements
across from the
across
village.
from
Right.
Town Square, that's right.
Well, any of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, the
nobody
Black,
wants
the
to,
Black Bear one, for
I mean, and I'm
example,
sympathetic.
it's owned by them but maintained.
No, it's not. That
It's
property is
owned-
not owned by
It's
them.
owned by
Tyrell.
Tyrell,
Mhm.
but maintained by Black Bear.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. And that's the way it is for all of
I
them.
understand,
That's the way
but
it
for
is.
example, the ones opposite the center,
Yeah.
which is, I think, the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Is an
Those are,
issue.
those are all maintained by Town Square, not by the property owner. They were not maintained by Waterville Company. And I imagine the easements were just transferred the way that they are. So that means Tyrell doesn't have any,
Who owns Town
unless they
Square?
change it.
Tyrell.
Tyrell.
No,
Oh, I don't know.
no, it's a separate
That's the
company.
Mount
Tyrell, yeah.
The
No,
Waterville
no, I
Valley
see
Resort,
the resort, the
Yeah.
resort,
the Waterville Valley
the
Resort
resort. No offense,
owns,
I mean, they are separate entities,
they are separate.
but the resort owns the village, which owns those parking lots.
Has an easement for those
Has an
parking
easement
lots,
for the parking
and
lots, and
maintenance
has to
from whom?
maintain them.
easements
From
from
the Tyrell
Tyrell.
Corporation.
So,
Tyrell.
so
Yes,
the resort has an easement from Tyrell for those
for
parking
those
lots,
parking spaces.
but I think they can talk to each other.
I hope they can.
With the exception, and I, you know, with the exception, there's a special set of rules surrounding the parking lot that's adjacent to the ice arena.
That's right, because that involves.
I don't even know who owns that.
No,
Jason.
it's owned by Tyrell. And
Okay.
the town and Town Square have easements for parking on that lot.
And who maintains it?
Town Square. I
Resort.
mean, correct me if I'm wrong on any of
Got
this.
But this is to your comment about what a mess it is.
It is.
You can't get anybody to agree to, I mean, we've approached businesses and said, you know, you've fallen below the minimum standards here. So repave the thing.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
you
right.
can't
There's
get
no
it.
incentive to do it.
They're not gonna, they're not making any money.
Yes.
I mean, they're, you know, how are they gonna, so they're not gonna go spend the money to repave it. So what do you threaten to do? Shut the parking lot down?
I'm amazed at how long these businesses have survived that never make any money.
Yeah, right.
They've
Well,
been
they
there
don't make
18
a lot,
years.
they don't make enough money to say that I'm willing to invest in a new parking lot. Let's put it that way.
That's our problem.
Yeah,
We have businesses.
Because now you have your chicken and your egg.
Mhm.
If you
Right.
want, if you want to get really spectacular businesses like Wendy's to come in, all right, you need to have those good parking lots. You need to have that lighting. You need to have that access. You need to. And, you know, you have back to your chicken and your egg as
Right.
business
No,
advisors, we,
But that's
It's
town
really-
infrastructure.
No, it's not town.
well, it's not right now.
well,
Not right
forget whose responsibility it is.
No, I'm trying to address it.
But it is everyone's responsibility
Right.
in order to get this done for the benefit of all. And that's the way we have to think.
I don't think there's any argument there, but let's review the pedestrian village study. for the
Right, I
next
agree.
meeting With regard to
Can-
parking, and then we can work from there.
Where
as to
is
what's
that
missing.
readily available, or is it?
It's online, I believe.
It is online,
Yeah.
At the
on the
at
town website,
town website? Okay, that makes it easy for us.
under planning board, yeah.
Okay,
And then we'll take that up.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we do appreciate it.
Committee reports, town core group.
We are trying to pull together one, we're basically in the process of getting, the entire project for the village trail out to bid. There are a couple little details that keep holding us up, but I think, Mark, we're right,
I
we're ready
think
to get
Tom
the
is
packet
gonna have
out.
that ready today.
Yeah.
The package will be ready today, we'll get it out tomorrow. we'll bid it for 2.5 or 3 weeks. And then we'll have a bid opening and see if we're in the ballpark.
And you spent a lot of little details, and we're still meeting to kind of discuss, exactly which icon should be next to which destination. We don't really need that decided for the bid
Right.
packet.
I'm trying to get the
Mark's
bid
finally
package.
get them to understand that.
Just
That's not
give
gonna
us,
hold it up, 'cause that's good.
No.
well, no, we're
Because
trying to
it'd be
get
so much bigger,
it,
it's not silly, yeah.
right now it is holding it up. We're trying to get it to not hold it up.
Yeah.
Just trying to get the bid package out.
Oh, sorry, with SE Group.
The engineer at SC.
So that's about where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Conservation Commission, Mike, are you on that?
No,
Oh,
it's
I'm up to
John
the other
Racine.
already.
John,
They haven't met since your last meeting, so they're trying to get a meeting together in the next couple of weeks.
I have enough issues on the school board.
And the master plan review committees, I'll just start out by saying the housing committee, we've met it several times and pursuing data collection still. But we've had some discussions on which direction we want to go, and we're starting to rewrite or rephrase some of the sections in the housing chapter. So I would say in maybe a month's time, we might have something that we could sit down and discuss. I don't know how the other committees are going, but we don't want to get too far without having a public meeting. So I guess we'll probably have minimal discussions until that's completed so that we can make sure we include the public intent. I've had some people approach me and say they want to make sure they're a part of it. So they want to join the meeting.
Should we talk about outreach for the 21st? Because it'll be coming right up when we meet again.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming right up, and like the economic development chapter, we still have a lot of work to do, and I don't know how, for this public meeting, exactly what format, like how far along do we need to be?
Not at all, don't look like you've done anything, because this is the visioning session that
Okay.
will drive that.
Okay, good.
do we have any?
Well, we're right on track.
That
That
is
is easy to
I mean, it
do.
sounds like really
Very
good
good.
timing, because you've all kind of digested what you have there and have some thoughts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
this
think
is-
we should be giving you.
I think it's good timing, but we should talk about the outreach to make sure you have people there.
We're gonna meet with some of the business leaders that we had invited to
Yeah.
come and talk to our subcommittee.
Yes.
Do we have any dates?
No, because summer is, we're all working.
Summer is a
7 days a
difficult
week, I
time,
mean,
yeah.
it's, yeah, so we kind of.
Until we get past Labor Day, it's gonna be hard.
Well, do you want to try to set a meeting for a date for the outreach? Is that what you're?
No, she's saying, how do you advertise it to get people there?
Oh,
What do you want us to do?
yeah.
Put a notice in the newspaper, put notes in
And it
the
was,
post office.
didn't we already have it?
Excuse me.
Again, the
21st,
best,
yeah,
the
when
best,
I-
if you want to get participation, I think in the past, we've tried to do them around holiday weekends, so Columbus Day might be.
Oh, God, I can't do it then. Go right
Yeah,
ahead.
see, that's the dilemma,
Well, I think we had said September 21st at 6.
Well, there'll be a few residents.
Yeah.
You won't get any of the property owners. Any people who regularly own property aren't gonna show up.
What day of the week is the 21st?
It's a
Saturday.
Saturday,
night.
Saturday at 6 o'clock,
Well, then why wouldn't we get second homeowners?
because they're not here.
On
Yeah.
a weekend?
Who comes to
Well,
in
Once
September?
school starts, yeah.
Once
they're-
school starts, they're gone. I mean, unless you wanna wait for the skiing season.
Well, Columbus Day weekend, everyone's up doing all their homeowners meetings and all that, and how are we gonna
Well,
compete with that?
but then maybe that's a bad weekend, but you will not get a lot of participation based on past experience. If the goal is to actually get people to show up, you'll get a few residents, and that's it.
Well,
Well,
if we push it out too far, then we won't get any feedback to work on what we need to do to get it passed.
And-
We've gotta-
And who's gonna run this meeting?
I am.
Tara does. Tara does.
Okay, and have you thought about an agenda as to how to do it?
Yeah, did you?
No, he wasn't here.
No.
Yeah, now I
Okay.
see the puzzle look, yeah.
Yeah.
We're a step ahead of you, how's that?
Good.
I mean, I think if we stick with the 21st and get the word out there and, maybe talk to Sean or someone about helping us with free apps to get people in and.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you're talking about how to get the word out, because it'll be too late when we meet again.
We will. September.
Well, A, you can talk to Fergal, get it in the wigwag, which
Yeah, that's
Okay.
your best hope.
which is your
of
best
reaching a
hope
fair
of,
amount
of people understanding.
Yeah,
something is
obviously
happening.
put it on the website. but-
You can put it on the website and everything else, but I think the thing that people read, oh, maybe we can talk to your husband instead of Mike Fergal. But
I've talked to Fergal.
Yeah.
He's,
We'll,
he's
I-
around a lot more.
we'll
I mean, we can talk to Mike Fergal and.
we'll do the
or
wigwag.
whatever.
We'll.
It's not a humongous thing you're putting in,
Yeah.
but, that's where to go.
I'll get you a blurb.
Yes.
You may notice the.
So we're gonna put
Yeah.
a notice in the post
Yeah.
office. We're gonna put it on Jan's blog because that's read by a lot of people.
Yeah, but Fergal,
We
the
will,
wigwag is probably
we will,
the most read.
we'll get something to the school because the kids will be going back to school at the end of the month. And so we'll reach the families through the school.
Mhm.
We'll post something at the rec because we still have a lot of
Yeah.
people coming in and out of the rec now.
Where are we gonna be having it? I guess I missed this.
You said the school multi.
The multi-
School, the multipurpose room.
That holds 100 people, more than 100.
70,
I'd rather say 6 to 8:30 and get done early rather than say 6 to 8 and run over.
16.
Okay.
And somebody, you can solicit donation of refreshments. That's always good to have in the blurb.
All paper.
When can you talk to Sean?
Can we make up flyers? Just so-
Yeah, we'll do flyers, put them at the Golden Eagle, Black Bear.
Town Square.
Yeah, do you have a list of all the things?
Mhm.
Okay, any other committees, master plan committees on reporting?
I can report, the recreation and culture, me, Rob Wilson, John Racine, we divided up all the organizations we could think of that are recreation and culture organizations, and then we each picked one of the easier ones and, went to the head of that organization and did the interview. And then our job was to kind of write that up to kind of start things off. But we've been unable to kind of get back. So that's our plan, is to get back together and talk about, how we write these up so that we can kind of have a cohesive chapter as we try to finish up. So, and on the, on land use, I know I've started to get land use numbers to work with. Mark was really helpful, so is Nick, but still working on that.
Any other committee reports? All right, we'll move on to communications. Nick, I don't find a copy of that email, did you?
It wasn't an email. He came in after speaking with John Racine and spoke to me directly
Okay,
about the paving issue.
What is the paving issue?
He was just asking if there's a plan for it, if there's
Paving of where?
the streets in town.
All of them?
He's asking,
It was-
is there a plan for repaving the town?
Yeah, or a
Or
schedule.
maintaining the
A schedule, yeah,
schedule?
that, I think it was more like a schedule. Does anybody take the time to sit down and say, we're gonna schedule this paving for this time, this paving for that time?
Right.
It's part of the
See,
CIP, but that's probably the only thing I can say to that. It does change.
Right.
Depending on the situation, so. And I think right now, as far as, bits and pieces of the town that are scheduled to be paved, I think Jim's more going toward the idea that we're waiting for a large number of.
we have already contacted the paving company to give us recommendations for divvying up larger sections of town.
So we get
And
like-
what their cost estimate would be to do those, so that we can get the best per ton price.
But there is nothing.
That will, my plan was to include that in the CIP recommendations to you.
But there's no list or chart or anything that anybody could go to, refer and look at their road and find out when.
Not right now, but there will be as part of this
Okay,
townwide. Yes.
okay, thank you.
I have a question about that. Theoretically,
Mhm.
let's suppose that a condominium association would like to piggyback on that.
Oh, yeah.
That is something that would be available to them.
Yeah.
And I think they should all be made, because when it comes time,
When
they
it comes
should
time.
be made available.
Yes, absolutely.
Not that ours would, it's too soon, but I know a couple others that might want to.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Privilege of the floor, David, do you have anything?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up?
Talk to you about later. About
Yeah, okay,
Dave, you might want to listen to
okay then.
Is it relevant to talk about this, about the
Well,
the advertising vis-a-vis what we approved?
Well, I haven't been upstairs to look and recall what we've approved. I mean, you can bring it up, Mike, if you want.
Well, no, I actually, there's two things. Well, second one, whatever, but the advertising, I'm assuming everybody has seen it. Kind of says there's 7 lots.
Plus one,
What?
plus one.
No, it's 6
6
plus
plus
1.
1.
I think it says.
6 plus 1.
It said, yeah, whatever. It intimates at least that there are 7 lots approved in the subdivision. That's the way I read it.
Yes, me too.
Well,
And I don't think that's what we approved.
we approved a subdivision of 6, but there's another lot that's still available.
There is
Yeah.
It was already approved.
That was already approved.
Yeah.
But it looked like there's 2 lots. This is where I'm confused, because,
You see it?
well, not just, it just looks
I
like.
brought it just so that, whatever.
there's
I
one,
was confused
2,
also.
3, 4. Yeah, it looks like there's 2 lots in addition to the 6 that are available for sale. Not that that's a problem, but I thought that what's shown here is lot
That would
30
be
and
correct.
lot
That would
31.
be correct, because he only subdivided technically 2 lots.
Right.
So he had 4
Doesn't
lots.
that make sense?
No, he had.
Oh, there were
he had
2 others
4 lots.
already.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's,
no,
yes,
that was
right.
my
He-
question,
He had
so
4 lots
31,
and subdivided 2 of
It's
them
8
into 3
lots
each.
now. Right.
So it's 8 lots.
it's 8
now.
lots now.
So that is
Yeah.
correct.
So that
Yeah.
there are 8 lots theoretically
That's right.
saleable.
That's right.
So there's
Access
one
by
lot
that
that's
road,
almost
yeah.
entirely wetland.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
That was
and
what-
there is one lot that is for sale, not part of what we approved, but will be
2.
using the,
2.
I just, one's total wetlands. There's
Yeah.
one that is really saleable.
Yes, yeah.
All
I
right,
know what you're building.
that is
yeah.
using
Mhm.
the driveway
Yeah.
we approved,
Right.
and that's okay.
It already was approved as the access.
Yes.
to
But
the
it's,
lot.
but it is using the driveway / road / whatever that we approved.
It
Yes, we-
already had been approved
Okay,
for that. access.
Yes, that's correct.
My question is the wetlands
Mhm.
portion,
Mhm.
that's for sale.
Yes,
Yeah,
Sure.
But
Well, I-
it appears in the advertising, at least you could construe from reading the advertising,
Mhm.
that although that wetlands for sale looks like a building lot.
well, it could be a building lot because just the fact that there are wetlands on it doesn't make it unbuildable.
No, but by the time
you-
you enforce the setbacks,
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
you,
That's
kind of a buyer
but that's a
beware.
buyer, that's the
That's
buyer's
not their
issue.
problem.
That's not our problem. That's,
Was it
No, but
previously
I-
approved when the most
yes,
run?
it's
subdivision?
an approved lot.
It's an approved lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd have to figure out how to get there, Bill, and they'd have to, there's a
Well, I know,
lot
but
of
that's
things they would have to overcome to get there.
Right.
Yeah,
But
But I mean,
that's their
Nancy, that's
issue.
a very real issue.
What?
well, this goes to the planning board and should we be approving non-buildable lots, I guess.
That's the question.
But
Yeah,
no,
but
we
you
should
don't-
not, right, but if it's non-buildable,
judgmental-
you could turn it down on the basis it's non-buildable. But we've previously approved.
You
this.
did approve it already.
We've already approved this.
Can we have approve something?
No.
This was
Only when the
approved. This was
developer
approved.
violates-
No, I understand.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
understand, but the other side of the coin is, this is wetlands that we would,
Okay, but
Like to
wetlands
maintain-
does
That was
not,
the nice thing about his original application for the PUD, because
Right.
that kept that all as open.
right.
You know.
And just, I mean, if a buyer buys that and wants to build, if he meets whatever the regulations are to build on that lot, they're gonna get to build on that lot. The wetland, just because there are wet areas on a lot, doesn't mean it can't be mitigated or,
Right.
or developed.
Or drain.
Okay, but that's an
right.
engineering thing.
Yep.
Okay? So, I mean, people just tend to have the conception that because it's wetlands, that it's not buildable. It'd be difficult and very costly, but,
Expensive, yes.
conservation division go out of their mind.
Well,
That's okay, that's their problem.
but we don't regulate that.
Okay, so everything seems to be on the up and up.
Yeah, and the issue that Craig brought to my attention, you and I, we can talk about whether or not that really is or is not an issue.
Okay,
If what he says is true, it is an issue.
okay.
So,
Can I get in, a motion to adjourn? Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
So moved.
guys, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much for coming.
What Craig was telling me, all right, is that